Broadcasting live from Youngville, North Carolina and Ontario, Canada. This is Got Mead Live, a weekly show where Vicky Rowe and AJ Aramutz bring you the mead news, meadery info, and mead-making discussions from all over, talking with mead makers, mead owners, industry mavens, and influencers. This is Got Mead Live, a weekly podcast about mead and the people who love it and where the mead world is going. And now here are your hosts, Got Mead owner Vicky Rowe and mead and wine maker AJ Aramutz.
Live from the den of the puppies of the apocalypse, the Bunny Pen in Ottawa, Canada, Melbourne down under, and sometimes Ryan's Pad in Denver and the TARDIS in Miami, but they're not here this week. It's Got Mead Live. Welcome to the show. Yay! We all do this on our own time, and, for free because, like you guys, we're mead lovers. So, but the software, the hardware, storage costs money. I basically pay it out of pocket. I depend on my Got Mead patrons to kind of help me cover that cost, but we'd like to be able to upgrade to better equipment and software to do the show. I've had several people ask us to, so it's like, I'd love to. But we depend on you guys to help us get there. So if you're not already a patron, we'd appreciate it if you consider becoming one. It's only $30 a year. If you know somebody who's a listener who isn't one, ask them if they'd be willing to become a patron. And, send them over to sign up. It's only a little over 50 cents a week. Heck, you can't even get a crappy cup of coffee for that. And, they get you access to the patron boards in the Got Mead forum, our patron Facebook group, all the award-winning recipes that are contained in the patron areas. So it's a pretty good deal. And, it helps pay for all this stuff. So anyway, thank you to all of you who have either renewed or signed up since we were last on the air. I'm going to start making a list and calling all y'all's usernames out so that I can thank you, more personally. But I got lazy today because I can't see. So the squinting was getting to me anyway. So if you want to listen to us, you can listen live on the Got Mead website at gotmead.com. Just click on Got Mead Live Radio Show, and the player's right there. It's live when we are. If you want to listen to us later, you can check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Spreaker, which is where we broadcast from. Replays go back to the beginning of the show. You can also find the replays on gotmead.com and all of those other places. If you want to talk to us online, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/gotmead and facebook.com/groups/gotmead. At Twitter, we are at gotmeadnow, so feel free to tweet us. I'm usually watching the feed, or I try to watch the feed during the show. Depends on just how involved we really get. If you want to send us a question, just go to gotmead.com, put your mouse over Got Mead Live Radio Show. The drop down will open up and you will see a place where you can go in and send in questions or suggestions on who you'd like us to get on the show. We want to know who you want to hear from, so let us know. And if Skype is cooperating, which sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, you can call us at 803-443-MEAD. That's 803-443-6323. And we'll just say, thank you, Microsoft, because this used to work. So, anyway, AJ's got nail polish, neener. I
got bored. Things
nail
happen when I get bored.
I was polish, so I'm not
in my
anything.
defense. I was left unsupervised.
That's usually your excuse. I'm just saying, So, what are you drinking?
I've got a bottle of my Spiritwood Farm apple mead made from apples from a farm I used to work at. Mm-hmm. Started in September 2013, bottled just before Mazer Cup this year. About 10.5% alcohol because I misjudged how much honey I was supposed to put in, so it's technically not quite 50% from honey. But it's really good. This was an oversized bottle that I just stuck a taster's cork in when it was half full, and I think actually a tiny bit of oxidation has done really good things for it. It's really lovely, and it smells extremely appley, and it's got just enough sweetness to it that it's quite pleasant, and it's this sort of deep amber color. It's really pretty.
Oh, nice. I've found that a little oxidation can often help a sizer.
Yeah, just a hint.
Go ahead.
just a hint can make a big difference sometimes, and I know technically it's a fault, but sometimes it's actually a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I try to come at it from the perspective of, do I like it better tasting the way it is or the way it was, but before that. So in my personal experience, a lot of the sizers that I've had that have just a touch of oxidation actually benefit from it. But yeah, you're right. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a fault in judging, but sometimes I think that that's kind of sad that it gets counted as such when it actually adds to the entire package. So.
Yeah, I wonder if you get dinged if you say micro-oxidized on purpose. I don't know.
I don't know. No, that's a really
Because
good question.
honestly, there's a couple of things that are really well aged that it wouldn't be the same if it didn't have a bit of the oxidation in it.
We'll have to get a couple. We'll have to do another talk to the judges show and ask them.
Hmm.
Yeah, and see what the people who make the rules say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I went a little wild at a cider place that's just literally up the road from the cottage where where my parents have their place, and it's an old town called Chief that isn't even really a town nor yet a village. It's like 4 houses and a cross street.
It's a corner.
It's pretty much a corner, yeah.
Yeah.
And but there's this little cider place that opened up there, and it's called Northern Natural Cider, and they have this their flagship cider is called Northern Star, not surprisingly, and it's an off dry, fairly clean cider. It's not like spectacular per se, but it's a nice, clean, easy drinking cider. I like it.
That's
It's
cool.
yeah, it's pretty straight up and simple and country. So
Nice.
I'm getting messages from Allison. She's saying rations at the ready, showing me pictures of mead and her screen. So we'll have to get her in here. What about you, Hamish? Are you drinking or are you just drinking tea or coffee this morning?
Today I am having a cappuccino for the minute. It is still with the sun shy of the yard arm. And I got a few things this afternoon, including parent-teacher interviews, so probably worth being sober.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
gonna say the sun is over the yard arm somewhere, like here and at AJ's, but yeah, if you've got parent-teacher conferences, it's probably not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looks bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you drive there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we've got Alison Heath, who is owner of Apothecary Meadery in Sherwood Forest. I just go, woo! That's so cool. In Sherwood Forest in the UK, in Nottinghamshire, and she's also co-founder of the European Mead Makers Association and helped found the Mead Maidens group on Facebook. So she's been getting
Cool.
involved in a lot of stuff, but she's been open just for I think a couple of years. But she's like the first female professional mead maker in the UK, which is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, lives in a 16th century cottage cottage in the middle of nowhere, which is really cool.
Okay, she's already way too cool.
Yeah, I know, right? They do a lot of green fermenting, so they try to make use to use minimal amounts of excess power, what have you, and at the same time reuse everything they can. So she was telling me that like their yeast is reused in the local bakehouse to create artisan breads, and they use
Cool.
yeah, they use their hydromel to create glazes for sweetbread toppings and flavored sauces. Their excess fruit is boiled up to create jams and conserves, and then she sells those for charity at events. And her customers are encouraged to bring their stoneware crocks and decorative glass bottles back to get money back. So she tries to be as green as possible, and the only electricity she uses in the making of her mead is for the pots themselves to just heat things up so that the honey will liquidize, and everything else is done. And she's even on like a historic estate there in Sherwood Forest.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really cool. I really want to go back to the UK now and go visit her. So I'm going to go ahead and get her in the call, and
Cool.
yeah. I can't read my screen.
I'm
It's like,
I'm
oh
just
my
laughing at the
god.
idea of. I'm just laughing at the idea of glazing sweetbreads, which in England is not bread.
Yeah.
Yes, I
It's
know.
what, like calf brain or something?
Yeah. Sweetbread is not
Pancreas,
bread,
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we are calling her now, so hopefully she'll be able to pick up. I always worry calling phones overseas because I just never know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
Hello.
There she is. Hey, Allie, welcome to Got Me Live.
Hi guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
We can.
We can hear you. Yeah, you're not cutting out too much. Just don't move, okay?
Oh boy.
I'll be sat rigid for the next 2 hours.
There
not
you
moving.
go.
I've got my
Yeah,
provisions.
make
Cup
sure
of
you
tea.
hold your arms the right way. Stand on one foot. You know that whatever it takes. You've got me and AJ in Canada and Hamish in Australia. So 3 of us are on.
Good morning.
Oh wow. Hi guys. Good morning. Good. Very early hours of the morning here. What is it with you?
It's morning here still. It's evening over there.
Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Hi Canada.
Hi, Alison.
Yeah, AJ and I are both evening time, but Hamish is like, what is it, 11 o'clock in the morning there? Hamish?
Yeah.
I'm
11.
I'm going to be so screwed up when I come to visit. I'm not going to know.
That's gonna be great.
Yeah, and we're going to I'm going to get off the plane and we're going to go see Sydney, and I'll have been on a plane for 20 hours.
You're the fool who flew in at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's the only flight I could get. I'm sorry. It was
Oh,
that
boy.
or pay an extra, $400, so,
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how much of a price we're willing to put on our own inconvenience. Eh?
I know, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, that and there's the whole 12-hour layover in LA where they're going to kidnap me and take me off to drink mead. So, kind of sucks to be me
Oh, the
sometimes.
hardship.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is. It's a
It's going to
terrible
be a real
hardship.
challenge for you. Yeah.
Someone's got to do it though, right?
Right, yeah. It's a really tough job, I'm telling you.
Did
So,
fill you in on what happened prior to the call going through?
what's that?
I say, did Vicky fill everybody in with prior to the call going through?
Well, a little bit, but there's only so much you can do as an introduction before speaking to the guest directly.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I don't think
Yeah, we just do all of the intro crap, and get it out of the way so our guests don't have to wait through all that foofra. But I was just telling the listeners a little bit about some of the stuff you've done, and AJ and I are both kind of squeeing over where you live, and,
Yes, that Sherwood Forest.
Oh yeah, Sherwood Forest, 16th century cottage, all that stuff. It's like So yeah, that's pretty darn cool. So how is it that you came to live there? I gotta know. Alison,
Oh, no.
did we lose her?
I do believe we may have.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're off to a great start here.
Yes, we are. Alrighty then, let's try this again.
AJ, did you do the dance?
Yes, we
Twice.
did the dance.
Twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the problem
I-
is that, y'all just be patient because she's in a really horrible signal area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it twice because I reinstalled all the sound crap on my laptop, so now I've got both microphones working again, and now I know how to mute the one instead of uninstalling it if it decides to override
Specifically,
it.
only one microphone working, yeah.
Hi guys, I'm
There
so
she
sorry.
is. What did I tell you about not
I've gotta paint
moving,
a
Allie?
Guys, let me paint a picture about where I am right now. The house that we live in is circa 17th century, so it's absolutely ancient. The
Cool.
walls are a metre thick. I'm relying on a cell phone signal that's coming from God knows where, and I'm out in what we term the man cave. So this is Chad's domain out here. I'm sitting on Games Workshop Necron Army boxes in effectively his shed, so it's really comfortable right now.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm trying to sit stock still. I promise you, I really am. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
So
Okay, you're just ever so much cooler now. Even
Yeah, I know,
I didn't
right?
think you could get more cool.
But you are. Yeah. So how did you end up with a 17th century cottage?
Well, we're on an estate called the Welbeck Estate, which is a historic family seat, linked way back to Chatsworth House, which is one of the original sort of, peerage families in the UK. And we came here as caretaker. My partner's a caretaker and a groundskeeper, so we get the cottage with the job. So we're really, really lucky, but it's a tiny little place. It's beautiful, but mini. And Wi-Fi doesn't work, cell phones don't work. We've only got like one power point in the whole house, so I've got 3 connected chargers running through the house, stolen from various appliances.
Oh,
Oh
no.
boy.
So that's the downside of living in really cool old cottages.
It is, and I wouldn't swap it for the world. I really wouldn't. I mean, I'm complaining right now, but it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
and I didn't know what to do to get it online. So yeah, we're doing okay. But if I drop out, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well,
We'll just call you back.
Yeah, we'll just keep calling you back. It's wouldn't be the first time we've had connection issues. So, and totally understand that you're, middle of nowhere England. So.
Bless you. We really are. Hey, I've got to know. Am I the first Brit on Got Me Blind?
I believe she is.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, not the first person who lives in England, but the first Brit, yes.
Yeah.
Yes! Fantastic. Results.
Yep. Yeah, you're the first Brit. We, the only other really big out of country thing we've done was the month in Australia, where we had Australian meat makers for a whole month, and yeah. So,
And we've had Rob Ratliff.
and
from the
Rob's
UK
been
on.
on, which we'll be able to get Rob at more decent
Yeah.
hour because Rob's moving home.
But he's an expat. He's not English, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No worries. So
Yeah,
I still
yeah,
have
he's-
that one.
Yeah, he was army
Okay.
contractor, so he's been
Oh,
stationed.
fantastic.
He's been
Actually,
stationed in
I've
UK
followed-
forever.
Bless him. So yeah. Oh, I'm telling him I'm sorry. We're still a decade behind everything over there, I swear. I followed the exploits in Australia. It looks amazing.
I'm looking forward to visiting there. I haven't been. Last time I was in the UK was 2002, and I really do need to get back over there again.
We need to remedy that.
Yeah.
Come see me, girl.
No.
I know, right? I got places to stay now. So, couches
and
I
stay
can
with us.
surf. Yeah, I totally want to
You
stay.
can-
I would love that. Yeah,
We'll
except
let
you
you have
probably
the
have to
man
put
cave.
me like out in the dooryard or something because it's a tiny little cottage. So.
You can have the man cave. We'll clear the boxes.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good for that. Now, I stayed in a 16th century inn when I was down in the south of England, and it was just the coolest thing ever.
Wow.
And it was one of those places that they've been building onto for 400 years. So you go like down the hallway, and then it'd go like up a half a step and to the left,
Yes.
and then back to the right.
That's the same. Well, this place originally was an abbey, so where we are now, and it's just sort of, you can see throughout the different ages how different buildings have been added in different time periods, and it's just, we're very, very lucky. Yeah, there's a lot of history of it.
That is really cool. So, I mean, that's just awesome that, since your partner is a groundskeeper there,
Amazing.
and you've got the place, and then now you're starting a meadery that kind of ties all that in together.
Yeah.
Was that something you were thinking
Definitely.
about along the line, or did that just sort of pop up for you after y'all moved there?
It was bizarre because he came as a job as a groundskeeper, and during the interview I had a wander about and I found a couple of buildings on site. Got talking to a few people here, and they said, "Oh yeah, we rent them out as commercial units." And then the gears started turning, and I just thought, how cool would it be to be able to be in the middle of Sherwood Forest on a historic estate and making mead, the oldest alcoholic beverage known to man. Let's try and make all these things come together, and the dream became
And live
reality
only
last
5
year in
minutes away.
June.
Yeah.
Yeah, and live on the estate as well. So it's a really amazing set of, different bits of serendipity that all combined together to put us where we are now. And I'm still pinching myself, if I'm honest.
Oh yeah. So how hard was it to like set up a meadery? Not just in the UK, but in the UK on a historic estate, which probably has different rules than non-historic places, and
As you probably guessed by now, Vicky, I don't ever do anything the easy way round.
Yeah.
I'll never look. I don't just wander out there and do. I'll do this because it's simple. Yeah, but I do think halfway through doing this, I think I just sort of had a bit of a meltdown and went, "What the hell have I done?" And we'd already signed up for the lease at that point. But honestly, anybody who's had a meadery has probably gone through that, and I can probably see a load of the listeners going, "Yeah, I know what that feels like." I've been in touch with John Torkington and Open Guard and quite a lot of you guys over there who are leading the way in this mead revival. And every single person's got the same story to tell. Yeah, we thought it was going to be so much easier than it actually was. Legislation aside, just the actual process itself and defining what it is to be your signature mead. So everybody's got their own way. So we had numerous hoops to jump through in order to get the license in the first place, which I've never done this before. I'm completely new to this. Then environmental health. So the building itself had to be up to standard for them to come and inspect it.
Right.
And then finding retailers willing to stock this beverage nobody's heard of over here. The vast majority of the UK still don't know what mead is.
Yeah.
Despite public opinion.
I didn't realize I was as spoiled as I was, because I've been able to get my hands on Moniac mead for decades.
Yeah, and even with Moniac as well known as it is over here, it's mainly just tourist places that stock it.
Huh.
There's very few supermarkets, high street shops that you could walk into and say, "I'd love a bottle of mead." The best known brand really is Harvest Gold, that's sold in some of the discount supermarkets. But it's not what we would traditionally consider mead. The purists among us.
Oh, is it a honeyed wine?
Honey.
Yeah, so there's this debate raging in the UK at the moment over what is mead.
Yeah.
And I know Tom Gosnell's brought it up in a recent article. Is it wine with honey added to it after the fact, or is it honey, yeast, and water in its simplest form fermented to create mead? I'm of the latter persuasion, and I believe that when a customer sees mead on a bottle, they should know what's inside of it and that it is what they anticipate to be the traditional brew, mead. So that's what we set our stall out to do.
So is that something that you're doing with
a whole new can of worms there, haven't I?
Yeah, is that something that you're doing with the European mead organization you've started?
Yeah, ours is the British Mead Makers Association. So I was aware that you guys are running over there, the American Mead Makers Association. There is the European Mead Makers Association. So I got together with 5 key meaderies over here in the UK and said, you know what, we need something like this. We've got to get mead out there again with people talking about it. It's got to be something that's in the popular discussion in the media. How can we do that? So we formed our own, and it's called the British Mead Makers Association.
Nice.
We're still in the process of setting up a website, but it's looking good, and we're on the up.
Oh, good deal. I love it.
So, love to do a collaboration with you guys in the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what's the
For
way
sure.
to make that happen? But, at the risk of sounding a bit like a snarky bitch, the colonists are totally one-upping you guys right now. You need to get a move on. Sorry, couldn't resist, We, blew right past you guys.
I think even this colony's doing better.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's totally shameful, isn't it? We should get out there and start whooping some ass.
So's the Down Under colony. They're doing better.
Oh my God, we're all
colonists
except for you.
Vicky, you guys are
making
colonists. You
great
guys are
strides.
splitters, please.
Treacherous, a lot of you. Treacherous deserters.
Indeed.
The colonies.
Well, Hamish, you were the one that was kicked out. The States ran away, and Canada was the one that sort of, moved out on good terms.
Can I say, guys, I kid you not, I'm sat drinking a cup of tea right now. I kid you not, I'm drinking a cup of tea. So just to end it on that note.
Oh, okay. Okay, well,
Bless you.
Everything
No,
stops
and
for
it
tea.
is. Let's all go and have a cup of tea and settle this
That's
gentlemanly
right.
life.
That's right.
It's 30 degrees in my living room. I'm not drinking tea.
I
bless-
drink tea
in all
every
seriousness,
day,
though.
so I'm a total tea nut. I don't drink coffee.
Speaking of tea, you a big thing that I've been seeing people ask a lot of questions about is have you ever made like a tea flavored mead? Have you ever done that?
Myself.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't realise it. Yeah, definitely. One of our meads is called Nevermore, and although it's an Acerglyn, I use black Assam tea as a base, so we've got a really heavy tannin load in there, and then I add in chai spices. So that's one of my 5 signature meads. So yeah, definitely.
Wow.
And I'll usually jump in on the forum and pop in whenever anybody mentions tea. I'm like, no, totally go for it. It's a fine line, though, isn't it? If you guys have ever done it, if you let a tea bag sit in, or if you let the tea leaves sit on the water for too long, you risk it getting stewed.
Yep.
And those are flavours and off flavours you don't want to pass into your mead. So it's a really fine balance to get right. And at what stage do you do it? Primary, secondary? Do you add it in as a back flavouring? I've not tried back flavouring personally. I always add in at primary. But it'd be interesting to find out other people's experience.
I've done.
Yeah, usually.
When I've added tea, I've gone with this is gonna be a good conversation. I can see it now. The few times I've done tea meads, I always make a pot of tea, and then once the tea is properly, steeped, I take the tea itself out, and then I take that steeped pot and just add and taste till I get where I want it to be. And that's always been my way of doing it. And I've done it both in primary and secondary. I prefer secondary because I find a lot of the flavors get subsumed, in the primary ferment.
Yeah.
At least the stuff I've done.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the big things with making a coffee mead apparently is to cold brew it. Do you brew your tea at temperature, and does it make a difference as to whether you have it at boiling or at the regulated British 87 degrees? Or sorry, I can't remember that in Fahrenheit. Or have you ever done a cold steep?
I've never done a cold steep, interestingly, no, but I might have to try that now and put a test brew in. I always, because I'm operating on a really mini micro scale, any commercial breweries out there think I'm crazy. I've got 3 class steam brew kettles, that's it, and the rest of it are all done in gallon demijohns. Don't laugh.
Wow.
And that's my process.
There are meaderies that are working at that level over here, so no, I'm not going to laugh. You got to do what works,
Yeah,
Did you say 1
I'm
gallon?
A woman. 1 gallon. Yeah, I'm a woman on my own. I'm in a unit that's not that huge, but I've maximised the space that I've got available to me. So these shelving units I've got stack floor to ceiling. So I've got the old-fashioned librarian-style steps that will take me up and down the steps as I retrieve the demijohns.
Oh, wow.
And I will brew. I'll brew in 150-gallon lots. So it sounds bizarre, but it's only the way that I'm storing the brews. So I ferment them and store them in the demijohns.
So you put them in you put them in 1 gallon for secondary storage.
I do, yes.
So
okay. It sounds a lot more bizarre than it is, but it's just for me. It's easier to move them about, maneuver them from one side to the other.
So I thought you were fermenting in 1 gallon.
No. God, it would take forever. Although it did cross my mind on how can I make my life even more difficult? But no,
I hear you though.
So I raise. Oh yeah, definitely. So I will always raise the temperature up to 85 degrees in the brew kettles. Then I put in the tea and infuse it. So whether I'm using herbs, botanicals, fruits, any spice, I always go in to create an infusion first of all. Then I drop the temperature down, and the honey that I'm using is raw, unfiltered British honey. So I don't want to put that in at anything above a temperature that's just going to loosen it up enough to be dissolved within the water. So don't want any pasteurization, don't want to lose any of the essential esters that are in there. So I'll drop that down to around 32, 35 degrees and then pitch the honey. So, but
one of our
quite fancy having a go at that.
One of our listeners, Joe Vinciguerra, says he likes using an Earl Grey in secondary. Earl Grey seems to be a rather popular tea for making mead from, because we know citrus works well with the honey anyway, and so that bergamot is rather complementary.
Definitely. Yeah, and the lavender as well. That'd be gorgeous.
I didn't know there was lavender in there, but I'll just nod my head.
Yeah. A little bit. That gives you the floral notes in Earl Grey. But we use the psalm,
Right.
and then the chai spices are the corn, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and cloves. So it's quite Christmassy.
You're talking my language
Yes.
now. That's my.
I love it.
My morning brew is a chai, and I've been mixing my own chai spices for years, ever since I met it. Well, since I came to Britain and I met an Indian woman in the departure lounge at the international terminal here, and we had an hour or two before the plane, and we sat and chatted chai for like the hour. I'm like
Awesome.
writing recipes, telling me like her family recipes, and I'm like writing it all down. I still have the journal that I wrote all that stuff down.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but that was my introduction to real chai. I'd only really had like the commercial stuff, which is kind of blech. And
The difference is vast, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I found several online herb providers who mix up custom chais that I like their mixes, but I also will buy like a pound of black Ceylon tea, and then buy all the spices, crush them myself, and make my own mixes when I get when I'm feeling like I want to do something like that. That's what I'll do when I make my chai mead. But
our test brews at home, we did the same. We bought the commercial, and then when I was doing the actual brews for the unit, I went out and bought the black Assam tea. And our next door unit makes Indian spices. She's a Hindu lady, and she's lovely. She came around. She was like, "No, you don't want to use this. You want to use this. You want to grind it fresh, just like you've just said."
That's the way that that I was told. The only thing I don't do, and I know I should, but I can't handle the sugar, is the boiling of the milk and sugar together with the tea. Because if I do that, then I can't drink as much chai because the sugar kills me.
No.
So, yeah. Alternatively, I use honey or stevia because I just can't handle very much sugar. I'm just not very good with it.
Yeah. I never tried stevia.
Yeah, you can't boil the stevia. That doesn't work. But what I do is I steep my chai and then I add my milk and stevia to taste. So I'm kind of cheating because I'm not boiling it because that's the proper way to make it. But I'm also not pouring it into a saucer and drinking it from the saucer. So
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah. Well, I'm even less.
For you guys.
The what?
I've got a question for you guys, if you don't mind.
No.
Sure.
One of my good friends and colleagues over here in the UK, Bob Thornton from More Mead, he's just set up his own meadery in a collaboration with Sam from Mel, and they produced a 19% ABV chocolate mead. The thing sounds amazing. Have you got any experience in making a chocolate mead?
Chocolate is a challenge.
It is.
One of the real issues with chocolate is that it can taste like cheap cocoa powder, like how it's not got any sweetness in it, the cocoa powder, and as a kid you go, ooh, chocolate, oh yuck, and go to spit it out. So you get a lot of that powdery feeling, and so mouthfeel is really important when making a chocolate mead. Being 19%, he's got a bucket load of alcohol in there too, so I would expect that to be a really sweet mead. I would expect it to come in around 1.03, 1.04 maybe, as a dessert or at least a sweet mead. As for the main palate, there's some other things you can do for mouthfeel, but my experience isn't great on it. But of my experience tasting them, that's what I can tell you.
I did make.
I was wondering about.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Vicky. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I have to agree with Hamish in my experience with the good chocolate meads that I've had. But what I've heard from a lot of people, and there are several good threads on the Got Mead forums about making chocolate meads, but cocoa nibs seems to be a very popular main ingredient for that, rather than powdered cocoa. But cocoa nibs, and then other people I've seen use defatted cocoa, because what happens with it is if it's regular cocoa, it's got a heavy load of fat in it, and that fat sort of you have to rack out from underneath the fat. That's what it comes down to, because it separates and rises. But cocoa nibs seems to be a very popular way to get that chocolate note. And personally, I would pair it with like a little cinnamon just to give it some depth.
Yeah,
Yes.
or if you do make a big sweet one, cutting it with chili works a treat.
Oh gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Do it like an Aztec
Ooh.
chocolate.
Chocolate
You
and
cut it-
cinnamon.
Yeah, chocolate, cinnamon, and some chili. Oh yeah.
You're talking my language. Talking
I
my
don't
language.
have.
Hey,
I don't.
somebody could come up with a traditional Mayan chocolate or something like that.
God, that would be
I
awesome.
wonder if that's been done.
Not yet.
I would really like to.
Yeah.
Mm.
I haven't seen one commercially. I'm sure somebody's done it from home, but an Aztec chocolate would be amazing because I love the Aztec chocolate.
Me too. Yeah.
My
Definitely.
experience with
Okay.
doing chocolate meads so far has been with cocoa powder, but I got a high quality cocoa powder. I didn't just use like fries or anything like that. And I tried several different kinds of cocoa powder in several different concentrations so that I knew what I was getting into. And I did not find I ended up with a powdery taste from it, but I did find that I really did have to watch how I back sweetened it, because left to its own devices, it was bitter and very unpleasant if I didn't back sweeten it, so I did. And I don't know if, Hamish, I don't remember if you got a chance to taste the chocolate pear, but by the time I got it out there, the pear is pretty much gone, but it still tasted fairly chocolatey. And
Look,
I didn't.
I tasted a lot of things,
Yeah, I know.
and I wasn't spitting.
Yeah,
We
same.
noticed.
But I don't think I got anybody who tasted that and said it tasted powdery. But it's also
wow.
case of, it's been aged for, when did I make? I made that for the chocolate group brew 5 or 10 years ago on Godmead on the forum. So
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
that one's very well aged, but it's aged to the point where the pear that I paired it with is pretty much disappeared, but the chocolate's quite still there, and it's well, words.
And is it getting more bitter the older it's getting? Is it aging well, or is it balancing out?
I think it's aging well. I did not find it getting, you can taste the hint of bitterness, but it's countered by the back sweetening. And I'm really glad I did back sweeten it. I have a tendency to just let my meads do what they want and then try to find who likes it that way, and it's usually not me if it's dry. But I'm really glad that I did back sweeten that batch. And that was probably the batch that I have done the most experimentation with beforehand, like trying. I was using the 1 liter mason jars, and 1 ounce of this type of cocoa, 2 ounces of this type of cocoa, and repeat that times all the kinds of cocoa that I could get and see how it turns out. And I ended up using a Camino brand, just cocoa that comes in a tin, and I'm not even sure what process they use for it, but that one ended up tasting the best. And the one that I get from my bulk food store that is a higher fat dark red one actually had a better aroma, but this one had a better taste, so I went with it. And if I'd been trying to fine-tune it for, say, a commercial purpose, I might have combined the two so that I get the aroma from one and more of the flavor from the other.
Yeah, okay. I've always veered away from trying it or experimenting with it, because I know from cooking experience there's a lot of fat inherent within even the cocoa nibs. So if you're starting from a base of that, would you need some kind of emulsifier to get them incorporated, or does it just sit like a layer of fat on top?
Actually,
separate.
What I ended up doing was I made the pear mead, and then I racked it onto the cocoa powder for secondary, and then let it age like that for a couple of months, and then racked it off. And what I found was there was a small layer of oil that I just sort of had to hold my breath and put the siphoning hose through when I was racking it.
Okay.
But it didn't come out in the bottles, and it wasn't a thick layer either. I think your alcohol is gonna the alcohol dissolves a little bit of fat, so I think the amount of alcohol you end up, or the amount of fat you end up with, is going to depend on the fat content of your cocoa, and also the alcohol content of your mead. I'm gonna suspect that the higher the alcohol content, the less problem you'll have with oil, but you're gonna have it dissolved in your mead.
Okay. So, I mean, the guys like Bob, the two Bobs, Bob from IC, Bob from Valhalla, they produce higher ABV content meads than I do. Mine tend to be around the session level, so I think I'll leave the chocolate to them.
What do you describe as session?
Pardon?
What do you describe as session? What's your
Well,
definition
Mine kind of hover around the 10% ABV. So
Mhm.
we've had a lot of people at the festivals and shows that we're going to, and they're going, okay, so what's the alcohol content? And when you tell them 10%, there's almost a tinge of disappointment. So I think they're wanting the tankard of mead that they can knock back and become one with the gods and all the rest of it. So I like to go for flavour. I've just been totally stereotypical there, haven't I?
I love the description.
That's perfect.
It's so true, though, isn't it? Really, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, almost every
flavour to me was more important.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, almost every new mead maker, not nude mead maker. That's weird.
How many nude mead makers have you seen?
You'd be surprised.
Is that a new association we're starting over there?
Right.
You colonial.
Yeah. That would be down in the Florida Keys where that sort of thing is like, no worries, you know. But
hey, what
That's why
happens
you
in the
took me
shop
there.
stays in the shop.
That's right. But a lot of new mead makers come in, and the first thing they ask is, how can I get my alcohol content as high as possible? And I don't know. I guess I didn't fall into that trap, probably because there wasn't like a mead making culture when I got started. There was nobody doing it, you know.
Yep.
So I was just like, how can I make mead that doesn't taste like shit? You know, is pretty much what I wanted. But,
Exactly.
yeah, you know, I
Exactly.
wanted it to taste good. That was all I cared about. But you know, I see these new ones coming in, and they're going, so how can I get it to like 25%? And we're going, why do you want it to? If you want 25%, drink rum.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the whole argument with the rapid ferment as well. The faster you make that yeast work, the more fusels you're going to get, the hotter it's going to taste, the less you're going to taste.
Yeah.
I'd rather take it slowly. I would rather go.
Yeah, but then it's
low
going to
ABV.
taste like it's 25%.
Is that one with the gods
Yeah.
then, you know?
One with the gods.
One with the gods. Arr.
Hey, to each their own. To each
That's
their
right,
own.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd rather go that way.
Yeah, I'm of the, I don't have a problem with a fast ferment so long as it's done at a temperature that keeps the yeast from stressing so you don't get that off note. And I've seen some really fine meads come out of a 1 month ferment. And, you know, on the other hand, though,
Wow.
I've had meads that I've, you know, let take their sweet time for several months and they've come out nicely too. So it just really depends on what you're doing and the environment you're doing it in, you know, I mean. I'm guessing that, let me see, 17th century cottages, what'd you say, meter thick walls? You know? So you probably don't have a lot of temperature.
It's pretty cold.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably don't have a lot of temperature variation going on there. You know?
Yeah, and England, what are we known for? Rain, cold, damp, miserable people. Yeah, all of that.
I don't know, y'all didn't seem all that miserable when I was there, and I was there in
Cold,
February.
damp,
so,
miserable
you know.
people.
It was cold and damp, but the people weren't at all miserable. They were very lovely. So,
Well, except for the one
we
that
had
said
two-
about burning colonists.
Yeah, wait,
Yeah.
I'm stepping away from that one quickly.
Yeah, oh no.
Traitors.
Oh no, that was hilarious.
So
though. I don't know if you've ever
we did
listened.
have we did have one visitor come over, and I was in Birmingham, and she said she was an American lady that had come from Utah, I think, first time in the UK, and she said, "Oh, a friend of mine lives in London. You know her?" And I sort of backed away from that quickly. Nottingham, which is sort of Midlands, North Midlands, and it's a long way away. And she said, and everybody's really smiley and happy. We have this impression in America that everybody over here is very surly and stern and serious. No, we're not. We're crackers.
It's like, have
We
you ever
burst
watched?
Monty Python.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, have you ever
We
watched
burst
Monty Python?
Yeah.
Not a lot of surly
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the French in the Monty Python ones that are kind of surly, you know.
Oh, yeah,
To a
it's like
second
TikTok.
time. Yeah. But yeah, when I went with a girlfriend in 2002, and it was the first time for both of us. And I basically was on a mead tour. I was everywhere I went, I'm looking for mead. I came home with like 2.5 cases of mead. It was hilarious. But we were in this pub, and it was down near Ottery St. Mary, down near Penzance. And it was actually the time when we were staying in the 16th century inn that happened to be down the road from Sir Walter Raleigh's family's lands when they still had them. And anyway, so we're in this inn, and the first thing we see when we walk in is this crusty old barrel on the back of the bar. I mean, it's got moss hanging off of it, and it's just nasty looking and green. And I'm like, what's in the barrel? And they're like, oh, that's a local cider. And I'm going, great, I'll take a glass of that. My girlfriend, she's been drinking Guinness. And I'm going, dude, we can get Guinness at home, you know. I mean, it's not the same, I know, but still, we can get Guinness at home, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm like, so I'm going through the country, and I'm drinking the local ciders, I'm getting the local wines, you know, I'm getting whatever the people in the place that we're at are drinking. And so we get that, and we go into, there's this little dining room, and it has one of those lovely, great fireplaces that are so huge you could move a small family into it. You know, I mean,
wow.
You could put a Sherwood Forest in one of these things. They're huge, and so this thing I could stand up in this thing, and it's a good 8-10 feet wide and probably 3 feet deep, and a good 6-7 feet tall. And the proprietor is bustling in and out. And we're the only, this is 6 months after 9/11. We are possibly some of the only Americans that are in Britain at this point in time.
Wow.
Most Americans were cowering at home going, oh, hell no. You know? And I was like, no dang plane people crash are going to keep me from going on my vacation. You know, so I booked my ticket on the day after the plane.
You go, girl.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let it keep me from doing a thing. Anyway, so we're sitting there and we're eating our dinner, and everybody around there's like, they're locals, you know, and here we are, we're these strangers, and all these locals, and they're all kind of looking at us, and you can hear the little ruba, you know, like, who are these people, what are they doing here, you know, curiosity. And nobody's really talking to us. And at one point, the proprietor is bustling in and out, carrying dishes in, carrying dishes out, and the fireplace had all the fixings in it, so it had the andirons and the stands and the plate, you know, and the hook to put the pot on and everything. And my friend and I are living history actors for Elizabethan England, so we're very curious about historical stuff, and we ask lots of questions. And my friend says, so what do you cook in the fireplace? And the proprietor is, God love him, never even breaks stride, looks over and says, colonists, and leaves the room. It took us a good 10 seconds to catch up with that, and everybody laughed at us. That was just so funny. And then the ice was broken, and everybody started asking us questions, you know. So we decided we were going to get one back on the locals, and one of the guys like, well, you know, where are you from? And we're like, oh, we're from North Carolina. And so we show him, we had a little map drawn up on a little laminated card, and we showed him like where in the United States North Carolina was, and then where in North Carolina we were from. And he says, oh, they do a lot of golfing there, don't they? And I said, yeah, actually, they do. I said, you know why they call it golf, don't you? And he looks at me and says, no, why? And I said, because shit was taken. Dead silence in the room for about 10 seconds, and then everybody was best friends, and we're all sharing drinks, and it was all kinds of fun. It was just a blast. But
brilliant.
It was hilarious. Yeah, it was possibly the best moment of the
Your English accent's still terrible, though.
I know. It's...
I know, Hamish. You did all right. It's okay.
I'm a lot better when I'm doing my living history and I'm in that place, you know, I'm in that mindset, because I've actually had British people ask me where I'm from in Britain. I'm like, I'm not really. You know?
Oh, well, my partner's from upstate New York, and he was a regular at the Sterling Renaissance Festival.
Oh,
and he
cool.
keeps
I've been to Sterling.
building this picture of the place. Oh, I'd love to go. And he keeps saying, Ali, I have to take you over there. I'm going to take you one day. And he said, we're going to walk through there the first time we go, and we're going to spot the English person. Because he said, you are the best placed person to figure out an accent. I went, no. I haven't got a clue. I'd probably, because in the company of Americans, within about half an hour, I'm picking up an accent.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
more between the two.
Yeah, I'm an accent chameleon too. I tend to fall into whatever the local accent is wherever I'm at, and I don't even realize I'm doing it until somebody yells at me. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and AJ, my partner's constantly asked if he's Canadian. So is there there has to be some kind of crossover between the New York accent and the Canadian?
Well, it's the thing is it's unless you're from like New York where you've got that type of accent. If he's one of the unaccented type, then I can see it because
If he's
honestly,
upstate, it's going to be a flatter, more Midwestern accent, kind of more like.
Yeah, I was
going to
say sort of Midwest
Michigan.
because,
yeah,
like, I really only have an accent when I'm drinking and I say a boot.
I'm going to say that if you've got an American accent and you spend a lot of time with English people, then you're going to sound Canadian. That's good to an American anyway.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I could see that.
I can see where people would. Yeah.
He does an amazing "A up me duck" though. Now we've trained him, and he will say "A up me duck," which is hilarious. That's a Nottingham thing. You come to the Midlands and the stock standard greeting is "A up me duck, here eight."
Okay.
It means nothing to you, does it?
No, it means not a thing. Yeah. What does it mean?
Loosely translated. Hello there. Are you okay? That's it.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
I ran into a similar thing when we went to Glasgow. It was like every time a Glaswegian would talk, we'd have to sit there and like really focus and say "excuse me" a lot, because we had no idea what they were saying.
I struggle. Yeah, I struggle with the Scottish accent. I love it. Don't get
I do too. But yeah, well, I mean, I don't have any problem with the Edinburgh and even the Inverness, but Glaswegian is its own thing. Totally
what?
different.
It's very strong.
Glaswegian.
That's what they call it.
So do you think at any point in the future, so talking about the different countries and the regional regions that we're coming from, do you think there will be a world stage wherein, like with wines, and you've got New World wines, and you've got, certain characters that are attributed to the wines? Do you think we're going to get that in meads? And you'll say, the Australian meads are known for X, Y, Z, Americans and British, Europeans.
Oh, I hope so.
Do you think we'll get regional variants?
I know we will.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, the honeys in Australia are utterly different than the honeys that I've tasted here in the States. And then the Central and South American honeys are, again, a whole nother thing. You get into the island honeys. I had a friend that was down in, where the heck was he? Was it one of the Caribbean islands, and I can't remember where it was right now. But he was describing the honeys, and he said the floral characteristics on those were so entirely different, so entirely over the top from what we have here, that, it was just, I so desperately wanted to try them. I haven't had the opportunity yet. But, I mean, the honeys are different, so why not?
The mead that I did reasonably well in the Mazer Cup that I entered, the responses from the judges were literally, they said, "This is like nothing I've ever tasted before. I don't know what this is."
Didn't you come home with a load of awards for that one, Hamish?
Sorry?
Didn't you bag a load of awards for that one?
I might have, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Might have.
Yeah, you
reasonably
did.
well.
Listen to him being all humble and shit.
Well.
Like he's never humble except right.
Yeah, we were proud of you.
Humble and shit.
Yeah.
I remember.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, the look of shock on his face when they called his name was priceless. It was just
That's
so
brilliant.
awesome to see the look on his face. I just was blown away for him. It was great.
Yeah, I was kind of hopeful until they read out second place, and I'm like, if I didn't get third and I didn't get second, oh well. So I just gave up, and then they called me in first.
Nice.
Well done. So proud. Well done. And well deserved.
Thanks. It was an excellent mead.
So,
it really was.
Getting back to you making mead, you say you do a slow ferment over many months. Does it actually ferment that long, or do you just leave it on the leaves? How long is your actual active ferment?
The active ferment itself is only 9 weeks, so it's not a long time. So it's not rapid. So it's and then transfer over into secondary, and I let it in flavouring in secondary. That's what takes the time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so the actual ferment itself is not a long period.
All right, cool. That was one of the things I was like, when the long, slow ferment I read, and I thought, that's interesting. But
yeah,
now,
I found we tried that, but sitting on the leaves, it was creating too many off flavors.
So
we ditched that idea.
depending on the yeast, yeah, for sure. One thing I wanted to ask you, you like doing everything very conservation-y, very eco-friendly. You've got your lees are being sold to a bakery. What's the go there?
Just given. Yeah. So on the Welbeck Estate itself, we've got a little food community. So what they're trying to do is establish an artisan community of food and drink producers. So we've got a chocolatier down in the corner called Ottar, and she makes the most amazing, purest chocolate. They're fabulous. We've got the Welbeck Abbey Brewery, who create craft ales, and that's a female brewer, Claire. She's wonderful. Cool. On site, there's the Welbeck Bakehouse. We've got Karkley Treats, and we've got Govee, which produce vegan bakery goods. So we wanted to get between the lot of us something that we could reuse the processes within the mead making. So I went across to the bakehouse with a bucket full of gunk and said, "Can you use this?" And he almost snatched my hand off. He said, "Yeah, let's have a go." And they came out with some sourdoughs that they'd flavoured with the honey mead from our signature brew. And it was spectacular. So he said, "Yeah, keep sending it. So we've got this amazing collaboration between the two of us now.
That's fabulous.
He's also taken a couple of bottles of mead. Oh, it's lovely. It's a lovely atmosphere.
And yet they don't use the yeast from the brewery then?
Yeah, they take the, is it called balm off the top?
Trouble.
I forget what they call
something.
No, I think Barm is right.
Balm rings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Balm
I
rings
think
a bell.
Trub is what's on the bottom. Barm is what's on the top.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not a brewer.
Oh, okay.
so-
Yeah.
I think it's the balm from the top
I'm
from
sure
the
somebody
brewery,
will
so they'll
correct
use
us.
that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, brewers. They'll all come out in force.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that play both sides of the fence on the in the chat, so somebody will correct us if we're wrong.
So yeah, they're using that as well, and the breads that they're producing over there are phenomenal. Real traditional artisan bread. So lots of weird and wonderful colours, shapes, sizes, and flavours.
And they're buying your mead to cook down into a glaze as well. I'm told.
Yeah, one of the guys came across one day and he said, "Look, we want to encourage all the artisans that are on site. What have you got? What do you do? Tell me about yourself." And I showed him the 5 different brews that I did. He selected 3 and did an experimental run of these tea cakes, which are a British thing. I'm not sure do you have tea cakes in Australia, Hamish?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay, so tea cakes, and the glaze that they put over the top was created using the mead. And I also understand that they soaked rhubarb in the mead and stewed it or poached it. And they were gorgeous. So like a seasonal special. It's not something they produce all year round, but every now and again they'll come across and go, "Okay, we're doing a new one. What can we do?"
Tell them to try poaching pears in mead. It's amazing.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Well, we do a cherry. So my melomel is part cherry star anise and stem ginger. So that would go gorgeous. I can't get my words out. Blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
with pears.
Well, you were talking about how
I have to try that.
how you're reusing your fruit to make jams and jellies and whatnot. There's a there's a Catholic monastery in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that is about probably 60 kilometers from where I went to college. And they're off in the woods in this tiny little monastery, and they make all of these lovely breads and jams and jellies and everything, and I mean everything has alcohol in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God, their marmalade. Oh my God, their marmalade is like, this is what marmalade tastes like in heaven. You know, they got a direct line to God's marmalade there.
Like
it's just, unbelievably good. And well, they're Catholics, so of course they do. But. Don't smack me, my Catholic friends.
Marmalade that is one with the gods.
That is one with the gods. Yeah, right. So, and I'm
It
really
is one with the gods.
I'm really surprised they don't
marmalade.
make mead. One of these years, I'm going to go up there and talk to the prior and say you should make mead, because this is how they fund the upkeep of the monks and the monastery itself, is by selling these goods, and they're quite popular. People come from all over. I get their newsletter. You can order their stuff on through their newsletter, and they'll ship you boxes of their goodies. And but you were saying about reusing the fruit, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to have the fermented fruit and then also have it with alcohol in it, so that you get this sort of boozy jam.
Boozy jam. Oh,
I've done it. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine. Well, one of my other hats is I'm vice president of our local WI, and we're one of the biggest WIs in the region. We've got 120 members.
Wow.
So at our summer fairs and things, the lady from the brewery, who is the treasurer, said to me, "Your fruit what do you do with it? I said, well, it either goes to the pigs or it goes in the bin. And she said, let's make some jams. So we've made jams and we're selling them for charity. There's no profit made out of it because it's a byproduct, and we wanted to be able to give back to the community and also make use, so we're not throwing as much stuff away. I'm a bit of an eco warrior. If I can do anything that isn't even a small amount of good, it feels good to me, and that's important. I'd like to.
So what's your
thing.
process? What's your process making jam? Do you sweeten it up, or is it how do you?
Yeah, it's not been sweet enough. So I'm putting apple peel in for pectin rather than buying in pectin, and I'm adding preserving sugar. So at the end, and it literally all goes in. So apricots, raisins, we've got hot cherries. Some of the star anise comes in, some of the cloves come in from the other brews, and it's just literally all pitched into a pot, and it's actually really good.
Oh gosh, that sounds wonderful.
Alcohol content, I don't know. Yeah,
it's a big blend, is it?
It's what? Sorry. Well, half of it I
blend.
take off and I blend down. It is, yeah. So it goes into a big like casserole pot.
Oh wow.
And I'll blend half of it smooth, and I'll leave some of it cut in chunks, so it's a textured jam. It's pretty yummy.
Lovely. Yeah, I do that with my strawberry quite regularly.
Yeah, you can ask any question you want. That's why we're here.
I've
to talk.
I've had because I really I'm not going to get this opportunity again where I've got such a varied mix of expertise, and insight into the industry. So I'm going to make the most of it while I can.
Sure.
I've got numerous people at the minute that are on our Facebook feed who are constantly messaging me and going, "Can I have a bottle of mead sent to America? Can you send me a bottle of mead to America?" I would dearly love to, but I am terrified of the bloody FDA. What's involved in setting that up and getting stuff shipped to the States?
What you do?
Look,
the easiest thing
it's
you
not
can
that
do.
hard.
Hey, Mr. Australia.
Honestly, if he's shipped it to you, if he's had to ship in stuff, he probably knows as much about it as you.
He's not a commercial meadery, though. It's a whole different process when you're commercial.
True.
Yeah.
And that's where
If you're a commercial meadery, what you do is you connect with one of the importers here in the States who make it their business to import, meads from outside the United States, and they help you set up through all the customs and FDA and all that hoorah to get things squared away so that you can ship in country. The downside is that as a micro mead maker, you're probably not going to have a production level enough to interest them. That's not to say that there won't be somebody, and certainly we could make inquiries and see. But as a commercial mead maker, that's how you're going to get it into the States, short of, somebody like myself or Hamish or somebody coming over there and bringing it back with us,
Yeah. The FDA is not really much of a challenge. The real challenge is that to import commercially, you need someone with a commercial importer's license.
Yes.
And someone stateside who can bring it in, and that's your biggest hurdle. Now, when we bring in meads for the Mazer Cup, that is brought in with a commercial importer, so there are people who know people who are willing to do favours and help out and interested in small value stuff around. So I'm sure if we ask the right people, we could maybe find out for you.
Well, Allie, what needs to happen is you need to come over to a Mazer Cup.
Hell yeah!
We will introduce you to all of the right people, and Bob's your uncle. You'll be all set,
Shout out to
that
Karen.
will
I'm on my way early.
Start making arrangements.
You know what? We had a visitor come over from the Department for International Trade because I made these inquiries over here in the UK, and I said, look, I've got several different customers in various different states that have said to me, I want to buy your meat, can you send it over for me, please? And I'm so terrified of falling foul of some sort of legislation somewhere that my stock answer at the moment had to be, no, I'm really sorry, I'm not at that level, I can't do it yet. So inviting this member of the government across to give me some advice, my answer from them was, I wouldn't bother with that just yet, you're not ready. Okay, that's not helpful. I need to know what I need to work towards in order to make it happen at some point in the future when I am ready.
Yeah,
so you've been more helpful in the last 3 minutes.
What you'd probably want to do is start developing relationships with U.S. importers, and work with them to find out what their needs are in terms of what they have to have in order for it to work for them. and and then figure that out. And certainly, you got enough friends in the States that we can help you find places to get it placed in shops and whatnot, or just to make it available.
Yeah.
Via Vino Shipper or something, so
But
that anybody can get it.
It really comes down to somebody an importer doing you a favour. So for that, you do need to get to know people. You need to find someone who's super keen on the meat industry, who's willing to do something that's not going to make them any money at the size you are, and who can see what might happen in the future and be willing to put that effort in.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and there are a few of them.
To put it in place now.
Yeah, there are some distributors who are really picking up speed on meat importing as they see the growth in the industry. So it is starting to happen. If you'd asked 5 years ago, I would have had to say, there's like maybe one who really is, who's into bringing mead in. All the rest are bringing in beer and wine and every other dang thing. But, mead was really not on their radar. But now they're seeing, partly because of the Mazer Cup and the amount of mead that passes through the hands of the distributor that they use, they're starting to go, well, wait a minute.
Exactly.
Is there a market for this stuff? And it's like, well, let's put it this way. 10 years ago, there was less than 200 meaderies in this country. Now there's over 500. Do the math.
Yeah, exactly. And that's starting to happen over here in the UK. I'm not sure about Canada and Australia, but it is definitely growing. And literally, we're at the start of something that I think is going to start inflating massively over the next few years.
I think you're right. I've been watching what's going on in Britain and Europe, Central and South America, Australia, Canada, and so pretty much every place outside the States, and just trying to get a handle on what's going on. And the really kind of odd thing is that all of those, with the exception of Australia and Canada, all of those places actually had a mead tradition previous to this, and then it just kind of died away like it did here, and then started popping back up. But I'm seeing so many places opening up overseas. Just like right and left, they're all over the place. So,
And we do have a lot to say. Dilly Dilly did us a wonder of favours, didn't it?
Yeah. Budweiser's the greatest thing ever to happen to us.
That's been ironically one of the best marketing tips you could ever come out with.
Yeah, it really was. They had no idea what they were doing there, so.
Thank you for that. I love it. I don't think it was ever intentionally broadcast over here. I think it just went viral.
Yeah, it really did.
Out of it.
It really did.
Oh,
great.
We had one of our listeners the other day. I saw them posting on Facebook. Got a Mr. UPS package of meat, and in the description it had Dilly Dilly.
Oh God, yes, that was fun.
That was great. Yeah,
brilliant.
And then he missed it
want
again.
A t-shirt.
He missed it again the second time around, and it just had "Pit of Misery" written.
It's nice when your delivery guy knows you, eh?
Yeah.
You're getting too much meat in the mail when,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, Mike Fall at Rabbit's Foot in California is doing Dilly Dilly shirts. So.
Is he? Oh, good for him. Go Mike.
Yeah.
I knew someone
Didn't he get a cease and desist?
Later.
I don't know that would bother Mike. Mike is well known for thumbing his nose at authority rather effectively, so.
There were definitely some cease and
we're
desists.
cheering him on right now.
Yeah, I know that they trademarked it, and there have been some cease and desist letters sent.
Oh, that's
I can't believe they trademarked Dilly Dilly.
They say the one that they did, that another one that went viral actually, was where they sent a town crier in 16th century getup to a brewery that had made a beer called Dilly Dilly, and he came in and he walks into the brewery, unrolls the scroll, and says, "Be it known to those in this building that," and he just went on and on in Old English. It was hilarious. Oh my God, I nearly
brilliant.
died.
Reading legalese.
Them though, for taking the mickey out of themselves.
You gotta give them credit for having some humor on the thing, because they could have just sent a lawyer, So.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's funny.
So
I've heard myself.
I've heard that the UK taxes in the UK are quite prohibitive to starting up a new meadery due to the winemakers having a good lobby. How have you found the regulations in getting started?
It's been an absolute maze, if I'm honest, and it's been quite a lonely journey, guys. One I wasn't expecting. I thought coming and doing something as bold as this, especially being a woman in a predominantly man's world, you could raise your hand and go, okay, I need some help. I'm doing something quite pioneering over here. Come and show me what to do. But it's website only, very little call centres, very little help, especially when you're dealing with taxation issues. So it's been a suck it and see process. The duty over here, we have to report on the 15th of every month. It has to be strictly done by the 15th of every month. So you're accounting how many hectolitres you've produced within that period, from the last period to the next. There's under declarations, there's over declarations. You have to be a maths genius to figure this stuff out. In terms of prohibitive costs, I don't necessarily think that's the thing, but it's all down to your pricing. So I have a lot of people say to me, your meads are expensive. Expensive compared to what? We have the minimum price mead over here is £4 a bottle, and that's something I don't even consider mead. One of the most expensive and the premium brands that we can sell over here is Northumberland Mead. It's at £39 a bottle, but that stuff is absolutely exemplary. So that's the champagne of mead, literally, quite literally. Luke brews, he makes wine over 18 months, I think it is. We've priced ourselves at somewhere in the middle, so we're absorbing the costs that the government are charging us for the joy of making this stuff, and also being able to survive and pay ourselves a wage to do it in the process. I think it works out at my level of alcohol, £2.88 per litre, which is not a massive cost, but if you're pushing it above 22% ABV, it's a crazy amount. Yeah, they're going to slam you for tax, for VAT. For duty, not VAT.
Fair enough. The other regulatory question I had for you was, you encourage people to return your bottles. You then wash them, reuse them, and resupply them. What health authority regulation hoops did you have to jump through in regards to that?
Okay, so like with anything, I've owned and run a restaurant previously, so I've got really good relationships with our local environmental health officer. So in the same way that I opened that up for the first time by inviting them over and saying, basically being honest and saying, I've never done this before. Come and show me what it is I need to do. When you ask the question of a government body like this, you'd be surprised at the answer. They can't do enough to help you, surprisingly. But our local EHO, Environmental Health Officer, Sian, she's been fantastic. When we knew that we were getting the unit back in May of 2017, before any of the equipment went in there and it was just a shell, I invited her over. I told her what it was I wanted to do, my ethos. So basically I wanted to have as little impact on the local environment as is humanly possible, using stoneware crocks, using glassware, no plastics at all in the process. How can I do that and also stay within the parameters of our comply with the health and safety regulations and food hygiene regulations? And she set out literally every piece of information I would need. She guided me through the process and was more than happy to say, yes, you're okay to do this. If. Now, we sterilise baths, so we don't have any heat process in order to sterilise the bottles. So we'll clean them in a standard 2-stage process. So we'll cleanse and then we'll wash them, rinse them, dry them. And they sit in a sterilisation bath for a minimum of 24 hours. They then come out, get rinsed and reused. So, and she's perfectly happy with that system. But it also incentivizes the public not to just throw the stuff back in the waste again.
Yeah, it feels like you need a lot of space for such a thing, which I know space is a premium.
It is.
How much room does a sterilizer and all of that for 24 hours? If you start getting a lot of returns, how are you going to cope?
Sorry, Hamish, you broke up there. I missed that.
Oh, sorry. If you start getting a lot of bottles returned to you on a daily basis and you're sterilising for 24 hours, how are you going to cope with the physical space that you'd need?
Well, everything's done in really small quantities, so I'm only ever doing 50 bottles at a time. So, and I rotate the area that I'm using for production as well as for bottling and for labelling and everything. So I'll do it on a strict rotation basis. If it's sterilising day prior to bottling, I will have the baths laid out underneath the brewing centre. So the is difficult to describe. So I've got 3 sets of floor-to-ceiling racking in rows going down the centre of the unit, primary, secondary, and tertiary. Tertiary is when it's ready to bottle. At the front of that, I've got my production area, which is stainless steel countertops with the castines on the top, and underneath them, I've got long plastic baths, which are filled with a sterilising solution in the bottles. So it's not so much needing a lot of space, it's making the best use of what space you've got and being very, very organised in rotating it around. And there is only me. I mean, the unit is the sole population of the unit. I'm just one person.
I actually...
You know, this is not a massive scale operation.
This reminds me of when I was at Moser Cup, Ken Schramm gave a talk on setting up your own meter, and the one thing he said was most important is to use every square inch of your space, and it does sort of sound like you're doing that.
Definitely.
And not to pay for any space you're not using.
Yeah, definitely. And Bob, I know Bob Thornton, bless him, he came up and visited me when I was first setting up, and he went, "God's woman, why aren't you getting tanks? Why aren't you getting fermentation tanks in?" I can, at maximum capacity, which I'm way away from right now, basically down to capital. I don't have a lot of money to reinvest in honey at the moment. So I'm at bare minimum drip through. At maximum capacity, I can produce 450 bottles a week, which is okay by me. I'll never go above that in the current state that I'm in, but that's okay. If I can get up to that, I'll be happy. And it is literally just what he said, maximising the most amount of use out of the space you can. We've gone high. The ceilings are, 18 feet high. They're enormous. So we've used racking, floor to ceiling, and just basically stuffed it as full as we can.
I have this mental image of you sailing up and down the racks on one of those library ladders like they have in old mansions. You know, checking your different batches.
It's great fun. It does make moving them an issue. So unless I'm racking off from where they are stationary, not disturbing the leaves and the sediment when you're moving them is a nightmare. So that's the only issue I've found with the process so far that I'm doing. I do have to do it.
But you get some wonderful head pressure when you are racking.
Say again?
Said you'd get some wonderful head pressure when you are racking. You'd have no problem with the speed of racking.
Jeez.
Yeah,
18 feet of tubing. Yeah,
18 feet of friggin' head pressure. God.
Can you imagine how fast that'd come through?
Oh yeah.
Out of a 1 gallon demijohn? Yeah.
Awesome. No, I'd love to see a future at some point whereby I can move to tanks, you know, and it's all about doing what's available to you at the time. You know, this was only ever meant to be a hobby business. Both myself and my partner, we said, let's do this because we're passionate about it and we want to at some point retire, because the jobs that we were in at that point in time, that was not even a prospect. We wouldn't have ever retired. So this was meant to have been an investment and something that we could do in our spare time. Unfortunately, I did lose my job back in February due to an errant employer, and I'd been unemployed, couldn't find anything else. I was getting rejection letter after rejection letter, and it's soul destroying. So we looked at what we'd got available to us and said, okay, it's make or break. We're either going to lose the lot or we go at it full bore and we'll make it work. And that's exactly what we did. And April the 30th, I think it was, we started selling for the first time, and the response has been amazing. I'll start crying if I carry on, but the support has been phenomenal. And I can't thank everybody enough. Stateside, UK, European, that's just been behind us and said, go on, girl, you can do this.
So a little while ago, you were talking about the terroir, the French call it, for wine, of how honeys and meads taste different depending on where in the world or the country you get them. Can you just spend a couple of minutes making our mouths water and describe your local honey?
Yeah. That was the big thing for me. I'm a trained beekeeper anyway, and I'm aware of the plight of the bee colonies internationally, but more importantly in the UK. We've got foul brood threatening us, we've got varroa threatening us, and the colonies are suffering a little bit at the moment. They didn't overwinter well this last winter, 2017 to 2018. So yes, we can buy in cheap Chinese honey and we can produce a lot more mead and make a lot more money, but I'm not in it for that. I'm never going to be a millionaire. I've resigned myself to that fact. What can I do that is an integrity-based product that is also quality-based as well? So on site here at Welbeck, we're really lucky. There are hives. I haven't got my own hives back again now, but we will establish them more. But we're working very closely with a farmer called David Chase, and he positions his hives amongst the old Duke of Portland's lime trees. So the esters that we're getting from the honey that's produced on site is sweet lime blossom, sweet chestnut, and hawthorn. And the flavours that come out of that, we're getting sandalwood, we're getting citrus zesty, also some quite pine notes, which was unusual to me. I wasn't expecting that. And it transfers phenomenally well. It's a very strong honey. And people who have been used to floral honeys, meadow honeys, they come along and they'll try this, and it is quite an unusual one to the palate. But because of that, we call it signature. And that's the one that we're now known for. So I'd love to have that English honey that's based within the Sherwood Forest, that's bringing all of these tree-based blossoms to the fore, known to be something that English is specialising in.
Sounds divine.
That sounds wonderful.
I've fully nerded you out now, haven't I?
Yeah. I'm still thinking about
honey, about the bees.
Now, I also heard you had a BBC documentary. Can you tell us something about this?
I can. Yeah, I'm not allowed to give you any specifics, and we asked this the other day because our local council wants to do a press release, and I'm not allowed to give them specifics. But I can let you know we were approached by our local food and drink forum, who'd been asked for pioneering local businesses that were bringing back traditional crafts or maybe doing something a little bit different. And she'd put forward me as a prospective candidate. Alison's, currently the only UK female mead maker who owns her own meadery, and she's producing mead. And the dialogue got going, and they came along and they loved it. So BBC One sent their camera crew along to film the setup and the development of the meadery. They obviously filmed the fact that I'd lost my job and that I was risking losing my home, my business, and everything. And that's the
that makes
angle
good
that the
TV.
story's taken from. So it's all about people who are waiting for life-changing news. And what they said to me was, okay, what's your dream? What do you want for the meadery? And I said, okay, many years from now, I'd love to be able to see my product on the shelf alongside XYZ, another well-known and respected UK mead brand, in this specific destination or this specific company. And they said, why don't you pitch to them now? And I was just horror-struck. I wasn't ready for that. And they somehow persuaded me to do this elevator-style pitch thing, Dragon's Den style, in front of this national buyer for this massively well-known brand that is extremely respected and everybody will hear about as soon as the show goes live. And I can't tell you the result, unfortunately, because that forms part of the programme, that forms part of the show. But I'm still pinching myself. And off the back of that, we've had a couple of offers as well of people phoning up and saying, you're the mead lady. Can we come along and do an interview with you? Can we tell people your story and the fact that you've overcome adversity and just empowering women to get out there and try putting themselves forward for something they wouldn't have considered previously?
All right. Well, the suspense is killing me. When's this going to air?
It's September. We don't know a date yet, but I can definitely let Got Mead know as soon as it's been released to me.
Yeah.
And is that a worldwide airing?
Sorry,
will
guys.
That be available around the world, or is it going to be
I mean,
location locked?
I think we'll be given a copy that we can put onto our YouTube feed. So once it's gone out live, we should be able to either give a link to it or send people to the BBC site so they can watch it on catch up.
Definitely
Excellent.
Let me know when it airs, and when you have it, I will put it on the front page.
Yeah.
You got me, girl. No problem.
No kidding.
Paul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love you guys. You're
Get
amazing.
on the BBC. I mean, woo.
Damn.
You
Mead on the BBC is awesome.
I know, right? And you did it. The first person to get Mead on the BBC since the 40s.
Exactly. Did you see that? What was it? Pathé? The black and white Pathé.
Yes,
about
that's
the
what I was.
mead makers.
Yeah, when they were in the robes and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to resurrect that. We've got to bring that back.
Yeah, we do.
British Mead Makers Association, get on it.
You need the You need an A in there so you can be like the Bama or something. You can't
Bama.
enunciate BMMA.
Bama is a brilliant one. We were trying to come up with something that was unique and different, and what can we started out with UK Mead Council, and it was just a bit bland and flat. And I said, look, it needs to be internationally recognisable, allied with the other people that are out there and doing amazing things. The AMMA, we've got the Australians that are pioneering at the minute, Europeans, and the Brits have just done nothing together cohesively. There's all these amazing meaderies separately, but what we needed was unity. We needed communication between the different meaderies, and we've got to help each other. There's a lot of, over here, unfortunately, there's a lot of sentiment viewed by some of the ones that have been longer established of somebody new is coming on the scene and we don't like it. We need to get rid of that, and we need to work together, because we've got to get the public to know what this product is, why it's so great, and what the heritage of it is. Yeah, definitely. And that's precisely the attitude, and that needs to go. That's got to be filed in B. Dump it in the bin, and let's work together.
Yeah.
So that's what we're pushing for at the moment.
So one thing, after talking to you for so long now about the environment you have with the bakers and the brewers and the mead and all of that sort of thing together, have you thought of trying to make a syllabub, which is a traditional mead dessert with cream and mead and stuff?
Oh my goodness, no, but it sounds amazing. I've just put on 4 pounds listening to you. Tell me more. Seriously, tell me more. That sounds awesome. So what is it, like a cake or?
No, it's more like a parfait.
Ooh, like a creme caramel thing, soft.
Yeah, well, it comes in a jar, and it's a creamy sort of. So you eat it out like a mousse. It's an English sweet frothy. Hang on, I can't.
It
drink.
sounds like a syllabub.
I'm ashamed to say I've never heard of that.
I said syllabub.
It sounds like a syllabub.
I said syllabub.
Syllabub. Yeah. What, something that my partner Chad would call pudding? So like a mousse.
You know what? It would be similar to pudding.
I believe the way it's
pudding.
I believe the way it's made is you use sort of a high-speed squirt of the mead into heavy cream, and it kind of whips it as you're adding it.
Yeah, so it's cream, sugar, and mead, basically.
Yeah, it's like making a Coke float.
Wow.
Not sure you need the sugar depending on your mead.
Yeah. Well,
we've got our WI Summer Fun Day on Sunday. I'm going to task some of the ladies that do all the cakes and stuff to go out and make a syllabub.
Have you got a local cider maker in your WI?
I bet there is somewhere.
Okay. Well, check it out, because one of the things we do at the Renaissance festivals here in the States is make a drink called a bee sting, which is half and half mead and cider.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. So not like a cider. This is a...
No, this is mead and cider, and you just mix half and half, 50-50, and mix them together. And it's great because you can blend all sorts of really interesting flavors,
Brilliant. Oh, I've got to try that.
That would also cut your 10% down to about a 7% mead, which would, or beasting, I should say.
Depends on the
cider. Which would give you a bit more of a session. Well, if they haven't sugared it, yeah.
Yeah. Far more quaffable from the tankard.
Yeah, it is. It's very quaffable. I mean, the Maryland Renaissance Festival is the one that I attend most often these days, because it's closest to me, and it's also one of the largest fairs in the United States. But they have some really good local ciders there, and I would always bring Boda bags, the leather bags, with my meads in them, and I'd sneak them through the gate, and everybody knew I had them except for the gate guards, and
they're not going to get away with that anymore now.
No, probably not. Yeah, but I would sneak them through. Well, the key is going in the press right when they open the gate, so there's like a gazillion, and then they can't keep track of everybody, so and. But I would go in there, and so people would follow me around, and I would make bee stings for people with the look. They had this really good. It was a cherry cider that was so excellent, and I always would bring meads to complement the ciders I knew they'd have there. So it was just a lot of fun. But yeah, it's a fun thing to do. It's easy. We made those for when I was in Britain. or when I was in the UK, one of the places we went was Inverness, and we stayed with this little old Scottish lady. You know those 4-foot tall ladies that are really scary, and if they stick their finger in your face and tell you to do something, you just say yes, ma'am, and do it. Those people, the scary grandma ladies. She was one of those, and she ran a farm with an iron fist, and she had 2 strapping sons who did all the hard work, but she ran the place. And we made bee stings for this little old lady. She had to be 70 if she was a day. And we made bee stings for this little old lady and got her all lit up, and then we just sat around and watched Scottish soap operas with her. It was fun, but she'd never had anything like that, so it was, and I was dragging meat all over the country with me because I was collecting as I went. So, we just picked up some local cider and just made it,
Just a side comment on syllabub. Dave Webb on the live chat is saying that Digby's book has got syllabub recipes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
There's some really good ones in there, and the Hampton Court Palace cookbook's got some really good syllabub recipes in it as well.
Personally, the one time I made it, it's like a whipped cream with mead in it. Basically, there's a couple of other things you can do, but I went. It was kind of weird as a dessert on its own. Traditionally, it's a dessert on its own. You serve it in a cup. I found that it was really, really good on top of a meringue.
Ooh.
So, or a pavlova. I don't know. Do you guys do pavlova?
What? I gotta look that one up.
Okay, so pavlova is like it's hard to even describe. It's an egg white. It's a whipped egg white cake. We covered in cream and in strawberries and kiwi and other good stuff. It's an Australian thing, Vicky. I'll introduce you when you get here.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Using a sweetened cream, which I then sweetened with mead, according to a syllabub recipe, was just divine as the sort of icing on a pavlova.
That sounds really good. I've heard of pavlovas, but I've never had one. They're not a thing here, so.
I think I've seen him made on baking shows.
Yeah, that's probably where I think I've heard of them too. My daughter is a cooking show nut, so I've probably seen them there. Oh wait, he just put
Great British Baking Show, I think.
Yeah, Hamish just put a picture of one up on the chat. If any, if you're in the chat.
I was trying to link it to Wikipedia, but my computer's being stupid.
So, Allie, you said that you wanted to take advantage of having a captive audience to ask questions. So, what can we help you with? Allie? Did we lose her again?
Oh, no!
Oh, my God. Yeah, well, wait. Yeah, she's texting me. Oh, okay.
Because she's got to take the pavlova recipe to the bakery and sell them mead.
I know, right? So you'll have to tell her again. Well, considering the fact that her signal is so goofy, we've actually been quite lucky.
We most certainly have. It's been quite a good night, actually.
Yeah, it's been quite a good night. Yeah, she said her signal cut out. So she probably turned her head or something.
It's now after 12, so I'm opening one of my orange meads.
There you go.
Yeah. I sat still, I promise.
Yeah, what did I tell you about moving?
I know. I promise I'm sat rigid. I'm not moving. I swear.
Oh my God, girl, jeez. You Brits just can't follow orders. I'm saying,
I'm so disrespectful.
Yeah, I know.
Now listen here, Yank.
Yeah, right. Hey, we're the original. We're the original. Don't follow the rules crowd. So
you didn't just call a Southerner a Yank, did you?
Yeah,
they get upset at that.
Shouldn't have. Yeah.
Oh, I'm well aware.
Well, yeah, we're all Yanks to the rest of them. So.
Definitely, this is a conversation that we have a lot over here because I call Americans Yanks, and like my partner's an upstate New Yorker, and he went, "No, Ali, that's really not an appropriate word." I had no idea.
You have to put the proper adjectives to it. Like, for instance, Yankee is somebody who lives in the American Northeast. A damn Yankee is somebody who lived in the American Northeast and moved to the South.
Is this for real?
This is for real. It is so very for real.
It's for real.
A goddamn Yankee is one who moved here, left, and then came back. That would be me. That would be me. I grew up in Michigan, so but yeah, it's
You're allowed to say that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I've got a T-shirt that says Yankee by birth, Southern by the grace of several corporate transfers, y'all.
Oh my!
I love that accent.
Oh, we make
bilingual.
We make good use of that in Scotland because the Scottish accent does that same thing to American people, American women particularly, and
I can imagine.
yeah, and so people would ask us questions, and we'd be like, "Why, I just don't know. We're from North Carolina, and we just have no idea where we all is."
I do declare I'm having an attack of the vipers.
Bless your heart.
That was terrible. That was a dreadful accent.
That's okay.
I'm putting it down to the phone line. It sounded great.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get to hear Hamish mock me for probably years to come with my poor Australianisms when I'm down there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he's already
When you
started.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll be months deprogramming you. You know this, right?
Yes, I know.
When do you head out there again?
I'm heading out August 11th, and I actually arrived there on August 13th because Dateline and all that fun stuff, but I'll be there for 2 weeks, so I won't be coming back till August 28th, and I'm just so stoked to be going. I cannot wait. It's so exciting. This has been on my bucket list forever, for as long as I can remember,
And you meet up with Hamish when you get there?
Well,
yeah, we're
Hamish
going on.
Hamish is the one touring me around.
I'm paying Vicky back.
Yeah. When he came over here for the first time, he and Bruce came to the Mazer Cup, and then they went to Manny's house in Florida, and then joined up with my husband and I down in Florida, and we brought our RV down, and we took him to the Keys, to the Florida Keys.
Wow. Oh,
and we went to the Everglades,
Yeah.
and we went. Oh, it was so much fun. We had such a great time. It was really wonderful. And so yeah, this.
So remember how she invited you to the Mazer Cup. Just keep this in mind.
Yeah, because if you stick around long enough, you'll get in. Yeah, if you stick around long enough, you'll get invited to come back to my place, and then we'll take the RV and go somewhere interesting.
Yeah. So
So
in repayment, she's flying into Sydney, and we're going to be driving down to Melbourne, across to Adelaide, and back to Melbourne again to catch up with about 5 of the meaderies in Australia, and around about 30 or 40 of the mead makers who want to catch up with us. So it's going to be a good fun trip, dropping around all over the place and seeing all the wacky animals and wacky people.
Promise you're going to video this. You have to video this. For interested parties need to see.
Well,
yeah.
I'm taking the Got Mead Live podcasting equipment with me, so.
Brilliant. Oh, I'll be looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah, I've got to try to figure out. I guess what I'll probably have to do is just do one and record it and then just publish it. Because the hour differences are going to be all over the place. So. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but we'll make it. Drop bears. AJ's going drop bears.
Do it.
So
do it.
Oh my God. Oh, Allie, it's been so funny because ever since Hamish finally pinned me down to a date, because he's been after me for 2 years to come to Australia, and I kept going, I can't afford it. I got to make the time. I can't afford it.
I kept saying bullshit.
Excuses, excuse after excuse after excuse. So he finally pinned me down, and I set a date, and I bought my tickets, so now I'm committed. And so ever since we started talking about this, he and all of his friends have been showing me all the different ways I can die in Australia.
Don't forget, all your friends have been doing the same thing.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious. So,
No, but it's true.
I know.
Seriously, as a Brit looking at Australia, the place terrifies me. The most insidious animal or bit of wildlife we've got over here is probably a fox.
Yeah, I
and
know.
they're not all that scary. Everything
bloody
in Australia
foxes.
can
I
kill
hate
you.
foxes.
Well, and we're going to be
Everything in
camping.
Australia can kill you.
And we're going to be camping for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're not staying in hotels. We're staying in a
seriously.
tent. And I'm thinking,
God.
okay, so I'm gonna have to like shake my shoes every morning to knock the deadly snakes out, and and all that kind of stuff, and
And spiders.
Vicky said she had a budget. I'm just doing what I can.
That fills me with nope.
That's a whole bucket of nope
Bucket
for
of
you, huh?
That's a whole hell of a bucket of nope right there. Yeah, no, I could not do that.
Well,
But I'm insanely jealous.
I am.
Yeah,
I am so
well.
excited about this. This is, and I mean, my next thing, as soon as I gather up the momentum and the money again, is next trip is going to be to Europe. I have never been. I've been to Britain, but I haven't been to Europe yet. So I want to go. I've got a standing invitation from the Polish mead makers, so people who can show me around. Yeah, and so I want to go to Poland, and I mean, there's so many things.
I'm
to
totally
see there. Yeah.
AJ,
So-
you need to come up.
Yeah, I know.
It took
Give me
us
a break.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year I left my own country.
Yeah, we had to pry her out of
she's-
Canada. We really did.
She's a little baby. She's getting there.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
It took us
Yeah.
It took us 6 months of browbeating to get her out of Canada, so we're working on it. She's getting there.
Now, when we lost you before, I was suggesting that with that syllabub recipe that you might look at and perfect, you might want to go to the bakery and see if you can get them to make a pavlova with a syllabub cream icing on it, because it is a wonderful thing.
Seriously, it's nearly 4 a.m. in the morning, and I need cake now. This is not fair. That sounds amazing. You're gonna need to write on the AMA page. You need to write that in the thread underneath so I can remember what it is, because I don't have a pen in the man cave.
Okay, we can do that.
So it's
4
a
a.m. is the best
pavlova
time for
with-
baking.
Yeah.
Kitchen.
Hey,
It really is. Yeah. Midnight
many
baking
moons
is the
ago,
best kind.
many moons ago, I used to be a wedding cake designer, so
Oh,
I
cool.
do cakes and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, many moons ago, I'd be up until 2-3 o'clock in the morning on regular occasions making cakes ready for the next day in a blind panic. So I don't do that anymore. No more.
Well, where I am anyways, they charge more for the electricity during the day, so I try to do all my baking overnight.
Do you know, I think they used to do something like that in the UK. I'm not sure whether they do anymore. It was like economy 7 or something at night. So if you wanted to, when my mum had us kids, when we were little, she'd put everything, all the washing and everything on overnight on economy 7, so it was a lot cheaper for us. I'm not sure whether we still do that. I don't know. I'm checking to see if it's on there. It's not on there. I can't find it on the. But then there's no Wi-Fi out here. when I get back into the 21st century inside the house, I'll have to look it up on the internet.
Righto.
I was saying to Vicky earlier, I'm pleased that there was no video feed accompanying this, because you really don't need to see what I look like right now. It's not attractive.
It is 4 a.m. Nobody's
Not the
expected to look good at 4 in the morning.
You sound wonderful
Thank
for
you.
4
You
a.m.
do, yeah.
Oh,
You're
bless
rather,
you.
you're
It's
very
the tea.
chipper for 4 a.m.
Chipper. Tally-ho, indeed.
Tally ho, darling. No,
Tally-ho,
this
yeah.
is a huge deal for me. I've been following you guys for the longest time, so when Vicky had a hint of me coming on, I was like, yeah, I don't care what time it is, I'm doing it. It doesn't matter. Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm going, but
I'm
Allie,
not
it's like
bothered.
the middle of the night for you. She's like, I don't care.
I don't care. Get me on there, girl. I don't care.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you
say
came.
your partner banished
That
you
was-
to the
that was
couch for
ridiculous.
the night because you were going to be up and down?
Yeah. Well, when I realised I'd only got 13% on the phone, I needed the rapid charger from upstairs. So I went in the bedroom and shook him and said, "Where's the rapid charger?" And he went, "What time is it?" I said, I don't know. It's like 1:30. And he said, "Have you not done that call yet?" I don't think he appreciated how long it was going to be either. So he just looked at me and went, "Take your pillow with you when you go."
Just
Bless
tell him.
him.
You just tell
He's
him
long. He's
Yeah.
long suffering. He's long suffering.
If I may
Throughout the whole
interject,
thing. Again.
it's been wonderful having you on the show. Unfortunately, I have some business I need to run off and attend to. So Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to have to go, and I
You
will
don't have
talk to you
leave
another
yet.
time.
He is, but you don't have to.
Oh, lovely
Okay.
talking to you, Hamish. It's been my pleasure completely, and I'm honoured.
Thank you. All right, bye, guys.
See you later, Hamish.
Take care. Bye.
Night, Hamish. Yeah,
Oh,
just tell him that, international radio stars know no hours. It's what it is.
Precisely.
Yes.
No, I'm painting him a bad picture of him. He's been absolutely phenomenal through this. He's been, to be honest, he's been the driving force behind the meadery. Keep going, because we've now reached a low point and gone, we can't do this. There's too much. We're up against too much financially, legislation. The things aren't stacking up in the right way. He's been the voice that's kept saying, keep going. We can do this. This is the dream. Keep hold of the dream.
Good
Oh,
on
that's
him.
awesome.
Without
That
him,
is
we wouldn't be here right now. So I owe him a lot.
That's awesome.
That's the kind of life partner you want to have right there.
Mm-hmm.
I am very blessed. But he still can't say aluminium.
Well,
You can't have everything, can you?
No, you really
supportive,
can't.
encouraging. But yeah, he will become bilingual. We'll work on it.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, I spent so many years doing the living history stuff that it got to where I could drop into that without any trouble at all. But it took time to get there. There was a lot of practice involved in getting there, and my accent was execrable for the longest time. And fortunately,
Do you pick a character?
no, not really.
Like a character?
I do. We do the organization that I'm involved with. We do living history. So we create environments. So there'll be a dressmaker's shop, and the lady there will be teaching people about how an Elizabethan lady dressed, and what order the clothes went on and came off in, and all that kind of thing.
Oh God.
Yeah. And then we had an herbalist shop. My friend Bryony, she is an amateur herbalist, as am I. So we have a lot of the same interests, and we would set up shop right next to each other. And I had the brewer's shop, so I'd teach people how to make ginger ale and small beer and mead and beer and cider, and it was so much fun, so people would be talking, coming to visit us, and we had all these different things. We even had our own crop of royals that went swanning around doing whatever it is royals
Royal
do.
things.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Whatever it is royals
The
do.
thing is, from somebody that's come from a background, and even to this day, and tabletop gaming and dragons, that's an absolute sensation.
You're cutting in and out,
We
sweetie.
have things like that.
There you go.
Oh, am I not? Is that better?
Yeah, smudge.
Oh, okay. So just saying, coming from a past of enjoying games like World of Warcraft and RPGs, MMOs, this kind of thing, tabletop gaming, I have an absolute passion for things like that, and yet there's nothing like that over here that celebrates old England.
Oh,
We've got Norse, we've got World War II, we've got War of the Roses, but there's very little that celebrates traditional English,
yeah.
which amazes me.
See,
That's
medieval
really funny.
It is, and I was surprised at how few celebrations of the older history, 16th century and earlier, that didn't happen over there when we went. Because when my friend and I went, we were both doing the living history thing. So we went to Hampton Court Palace. And so we're in the basement kitchen of Hampton Court Palace, crawling under the tables, going, wow, this is so cool. And we're walking through the grand hall, and they have 16th century Flemish tapestries, like actual 450, 500-year-old tapestries hanging on the walls. And so we've got our hands clasped tightly behind our backs, and we're leaning over the polite British rail, says, don't touch the 16th century tapestries, please. In the United States, there'd be like a plastic wall and giant guards saying, get away, but everything's so polite in Britain. And so we're leaning over, and there's docents in every room. And so we're leaning over as far as we can, but not touching, because they're 450 years old. I mean, that would be totally rude. And so we're trying to see the details, because there's people in the clothing of the period that we represent and are trying to express, and we want to get it right. And so the docent's like watching us, and all the other people are going, "Oh, look, rugs on the wall," and they just go cruising right through the room. And we're like 15 minutes on one tapestry. Finally, he comes over and he's like, "Why are you so fascinated with these tapestries?" And we're going, "Well," and we told him what we did, and we're waiting to be, we're waiting to get kind of like a, I don't know, like a snarky look, comment, something, I don't know. And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous," and starts taking us into rooms where they don't allow the public to go.
Cool.
We went
Wow,
into the
that's
ghost
so cool.
dog room in this one castle where this ghost dog appears in front of the fireplace, like, and everybody there is like, "Oh yeah, we've seen him. We see him all the time. He's always there." We'd feed him if he wasn't a ghost.
Wow.
But and then they took us in this one room where they had all of these horns. There's like deer horns and elk horns, and they're all hanging on the wall. And he's like, "So tell me which of these doesn't belong." And I looked, and my friend looked, and I looked, and I said, "Those right there." And he says, "Why not?" I said, "Because those aren't deer. Those are really, really old. I'd say maybe an oryx." And he's like, "You knew that?" I'm going, "Well,
Damn.
I read a lot,
You know your stuff.
Well, they found
You know
it.
your
They
stuff.
found it in a bog, and so they were preserved, like the bog dresses. They were preserved from, So it was just really cool because by being interested, we got to learn so much more. We really got to.
And I think that's the thing. And Chad comes up with this a lot, and he says, the one thing that he dreamt about since being a child was castles and, the history, and he had this strange sort of Middle-earth picture of Britain being like the Shire.
Yeah.
In Tolkien, and he was bitterly disappointed, bless him, when he came over here and realised we've got McDonald's and KFC and all the rest of it. But we don't really appreciate what's on the doorstep over here. It's just second nature.
No,
It's there.
Well, it's always been there.
One of my biggest frustrations.
You live in a house that's older than 95% of the stuff in my country.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
It's so sad that we don't celebrate that.
That's the thing, is you're used to the history you've got. Whereas we recognize that, our country just hit its 150th birthday last year. We don't have that kind of history here.
I think it's a different kind of history. I remember visiting Canada, and that's one of my favourite places. I've been numerous times. And we go to a place called Crawford Lake, and it's a sort of like a settlement with, you're going to correct me on this, AJ, and I'm really sorry. Is it Sioux or Blackfoot or whatever the tribe was that lived there? And they've done this perfect reenactment of what it would have been like back in the day. And so the history is there. It's just a different type of history.
The thing is, they've had to recreate a lot of that history because it's made out of things that don't last, whereas a lot of the history in Europe is made out of stone that does.
It's still there, yeah.
Exactly.
When we went to Edinburgh, of course, we went to Edinburgh Castle because you can't really go to Edinburgh and not go to Edinburgh Castle. And so part of Edinburgh Castle, there's this chapel that sits at the very top of the hill that the castle sits upon. And the chapel actually predates the castle by several hundred years. It's been there for something like 1,800 years. And it was, I think it was Queen Eleanor during the War of the Roses. That was her private chapel. And so we're in this chapel, and the walls in this chapel are like a meter thick, like they are in your house. And I'm standing in this chapel, and I've just got my hands against the walls, and I'm just kind of standing there with my eyes closed. And the docent, because there's one in every room, comes up and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I want to feel what 1,800 years of history feels like." Because where I come from, if it's more than 50 years old, we knock it down, we build a parking lot, So it's, we just don't have the reverence for history here that, one of my favorite things to do when I go up to the Northeast is go to Boston and walk through the cemeteries.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. The founders of our country, some of them are buried there. It's like, oh, that's so cool.
Chad
You both need to check out.
About is Derbyshire. Yeah, definitely. And he'll go to cemeteries and just wander through and marvel at the architecture and stuff like that. I'd never even dreamed of doing that.
If you ever end up in Nova Scotia, you both should check out Louisbourg.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you told me about Louisbourg.
I've been to Halifax, Peggy's school, but I've not been. Is it Louisbourg?
Yeah, they've recreated an entire village from one of the very early settlements. They've built on original foundations where they could. They've recreated everything in the old methods. All the people who work there are dressed in period garb, made in the way that it would have been made then, and they've got muskets. They fire the cannons. It's really a lovely slice of history, and they're still working on stuff. They're making more and more stuff, and there's a couple of places where you walk by, and it's like, yeah, these ones are. You still got the stones in the grass that were the foundation of this building that we're going to be building in about 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be on the bucket list now then, definitely.
Yeah. And it's the neat thing is,
We've got the Robin Hood pageant, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Well, now if they start bringing meat into it, and then maybe it'll be cooler.
I'm on that one.
There you go. You're
I'm
right
already
there.
putting the
You're right
Yep.
there. Shoot. I think Robin Hood drank mead. I mean,
I'm
he was
shaming.
too cool not to, right?
Exactly. I think he definitely would have done.
Oh,
but then they're doing the jousting and all the rest of it, but they don't currently have a license. But I'm working on that one.
There you go.
I saw jousters this weekend.
Oh, cool.
You did what, sorry?
I've been part of a medieval festival that runs every year for the last 11 years, and it was its last year this year. But I do armored heavy fighting, and my group was at the Osgood Medieval Festival for its very last incarnation, and they have a group of jousters that have been coming out since about the second or third year. That this is not medieval times. They are really actually trying to knock each other off of horses with hardwood sticks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet that's a sight to see.
It's the Knights of Valor, and yeah, they even had a TV show for a while.
They did. I remember that.
I've got to look those up.
Yeah, there's a jousting
school
in Texas.
It's called Full Metal Jousting.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Full Metal Jousting.
Full Metal Jousting is probably on Netflix or something. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm sure it is. I saw it on the internet, but
yeah. But
wow. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, I mean the neat thing is that through all of this history, there's always been meat, and that's what's really cool. That was one of the things that actually drew me to it. Was I had started getting interested in history. I was going to Renaissance festivals because I was interested in history, and they turned out to be more, about having fun than really about history. For the most part. But they're still a lot of fun.
And it's almost like a pantomime style history, isn't it?
It is. It's
a cartoon.
History for the masses, so it has to be watered down.
Yeah.
If you go strict history, the masses get bored, unless you give them enough alcohol, in which case then they have fun, but so they do. They give them enough alcohol. But the thing is, though, is that once I started getting interested in it, I started researching the history of mead, and I was stunned to find that literally almost every single civilization that we are aware of had a mead or a mead-like drink in it. The keynote speaker this year at the AMMA conference was Dr. Patrick McGovern. And Dr. Pat is kind of the booze archaeologist, is what they call him. He's like the Indiana Jones of booze, So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And he discovered the Midas tomb, like the actual Midas tomb, and in it was this cauldron full of a honey and grain beverage that has some aspects of mead, some aspects of beer. And Dogfish Head Brewery here in the United States has actually partnered up with him to recreate several of the things that have been discovered in these funerary, caches that he's discovered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they've got Midas Touch beer, which is modeled upon the scientific analysis of this cauldron that was found in the Midas tomb. They did another one when he discovered the Jiahu. This is when we found out that mead's at least 8,000 years old. The Jiahu tombs in China. Yes. And the same thing. They did a brew called Jiahu. And so it's just really, really cool because it's like they open these tombs up and it's like, and there's the mead, So.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I've been looking into over the last sort of couple of years, and I've kind of made a little bit of a name of myself for myself in the UK, specifically more about the history of women in brewing.
Yes.
And that's my sort of pub party trick. 7,000 BCE, and they're finding mention of mead or a mead-like substance in Sumerian and Babylonian tombs. Mm-hmm. That to me that was like definitely red hot topic.
Oh yeah.
This needs looking into. you've got the Minoan Mycenaean mistresses, and the very fact that way back within a household, when the Brewsters, the original women brewers, had a dedicated room within the house called the Pure, into which men were completely not permitted to enter for fear of it souring the brew. This fascinates me. How did it go then from that to being a male-dominated industry, and the women that were the Brewsters being labelled as witches? That, to me, is a story that it's the best fiction is made from this, and yet it's real life.
Well, and as recent as the 1800s, the women were more often than not the brewers. And there's a book called Women in the History of Women in Brewing. I actually have it in my library. You and I had this conversation at one point, I'm sure. It seems to me like we talked about this because you asked me what the book was, and I gave it. Yeah, and but yeah, it was and it was just a fascinating book, and I had no idea that it was so pervasive, that and that it had come up to so recently. I mean, we had the General George Washington's wife, Martha Washington, was a brewer in their house, and this is the first president of our country. Yeah, and she has a cookbook. They collected her recipes and published a cookbook, and there are a number of her brewing recipes in there, including several meads.
Wow.
Yeah. Queen Elizabeth had mead recipes that she was quite fond of.
Oh, I'd like to get hold of those.
Yeah, they are. Well, have you got a copy of Digby?
Of what, sorry?
Sir Kenelm Digby's Closet Unlocked. Ping me later, and I'll send you a link to it. It's in the.
Will do.
Yeah, it's in the you can just download it. It's outside copyright now. So, but there's he collected it's just a collection of recipes going back to like the 1500s. So, it goes back a goodly ways, and up till I think like the mid 1700s. And then there's another book that is one of my all-time favorites because it covers such a broad range of things, and not just meads, but everything from meads, beers, ciders, syllabubs. And it's called A Sip Through Time. And it's a Society for Creative Anachronism member who wrote this book, and she's a great gal. I really got to track her down and have her on the show. But
oh, fantastic!
Yeah, she's a really wonderful lady. But the book is called A Sip Through Time.
A sip through time.
A sip, yeah, like a sip of beer, a small drink, SIP.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Sip Through Time. And she's just got a wondrous collection, and more importantly, all of her references are in the back of where she found this so that you can go on to find other stuff.
Excellent.
It's one of the single best.
There are so many Wikipedia. There's so many Wikipedia experts out there, aren't there? Or internet gurus. I think somebody's actually sourcing and creating the bibliography. That's useful for us because then we know it's a genuine source.
Primary sources are all that.
Stuff.
Yeah, primary sources are really all that matter when you get right down to it. So, if you can track it back to that, that's great. Hit the history section on Got Mead. There's actually quite a lot of stuff in there. And I've got tons of stuff that isn't up right now that needs to be, that I really got to get back on there.
Brilliant. My reading list is ridiculous at the minute. I've just got this pile of things that it's piled under we'll get round to.
Yeah, and your point is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's horrendous.
Yeah.
I will get round to it. I must make myself some time to read.
Yeah, my stack is higher than I am tall at any given time, so sometimes twice that.
So talking about the supportive thing, I noticed in America the sentiment over there is amazing, and that's something that the Bobs and I and Mike Carrington over here, we're all trying to emulate. But the atmosphere over there just seems so much more friendly, and you've got this great community of people that are sharing ideas and inspiring each other. Is that a relatively new thing, or does that go back as long as you guys have been doing it? So I know, Vicky, you've been around on the scene for quite a while. AJ, you're well established. You have to have been able to have charted the progress of the mead resurgence. Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I've been following it since meaderies got started back up in the States since the 80s. But we've got a real, for the most part, and it's not 100%, nothing ever is, but most people are in a attitude of a rising tide floats all boats. If we help each other, then we all move forward together. And that's,
And there's
given
room
the
for
fact that we labor under collective onus because our federal government doesn't really, they don't see us as separate. We're lumped in with wineries, much like you guys had the same problem. And so that means that we have to labor under rules that don't really apply to us. So we have to help each other so that we can create that environment of inclusiveness so that we have something to work with.
And get the rules established so that they're easier to easier to navigate.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And that's got to be invaluable for everyone.
It is. And it's...
There's plenty of room for everybody.
Oh, God, yeah. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what possibilities are here. There's 400 million people just in this country alone. I don't think we're going to run out of customers for meat anytime soon.
No, it's only ever going to increase, and as the popularity increases, demand's going to increase. It's going to be cyclical. Look at the burst of the gin popularity. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that over there at the moment.
Yeah,
In the
gin's
UK,
going nuts
gin
right now.
distilleries are just, same. Yeah, it's mental over here.
Yeah, it was a really big thing here. I mean, it was huge here in the 60s and 70s. Gin was like the thing. Especially during Prohibition and all of that, gin was like the most popular alcoholic beverage. But then it kind of died away as all of a sudden there was all these rums and whiskeys and vodkas, and then now gin's kind of making a comeback. So yeah, that's kind of.
I've been watching the Laverstock Distillery on TV Ontario.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they took an old paper mill and turned it into a gin still.
A gin mill.
And it's the engineering was insane.
Oh, bad.
But that then becomes a tourism venue, so that's a smart move.
Oh yeah. Oh, just the greenhouse alone. Like I would pay money to see that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The dream here is you establish the meadery, you then move on to get a mead hall, or, like some of the guys over there in the States are doing at the minute. Phenomenal success. And people going as a venue, they'll visit not just to go and buy the mead, but for the experience of drinking it with in-house as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
One day.
Yeah, same.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Somewhere to put all the Warhammer minis.
Yeah.
Are you still? Oh, you're still there. So
yeah. It's faded out for a bit there.
Yeah, just, having the meadery all set up would be a great place to have all the Warhammer minis, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywhere, as long as I'm not tripping over them in the house. They're everywhere. My fella spent 17 years at Games Workshop in the design studio, so the stuff that he's brought with him and he refuses to part with, which, justifiably so, his work's amazing, but we live amongst it.
Well, my husband and I went and blew about $1,500 of our wedding money on Warhammer minis to paint as a together project.
Good for you.
So yeah,
You.
got the Skaven army done.
The family that hobbies together stays together.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And my daughter's just turned 13, so we've just gotten her addicted to it as well.
Oh no!
So
and another generation of Dragons is born.
Oh yeah, here it comes, and we're just starting her first Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So
nice.
She approached us. We've not foisted it on her. She went, "Mom, can you do me that D&D thing?"
Awesome.
Proud moment.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, my daughter was like not interested in that, and I was like, oh, bummer.
Really?
Yeah. She's just, she fell in love with.
Before now, but
she loves the movies. Harry Potter was her favorite, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. My God, I've memorized it twice over because she watched it so many times. And Princess Bride, and all of that. But yeah, she doesn't like the games, so never did.
Yeah. That's what got me into mead and chainmail in the first place. So.
Us too, definitely. We started, we met on Match.com, and his tagline, or his sort of profile name was Toy Soldier. So I fired off a question and went, I don't suppose you're into tabletop gaming, are you? And the rest is history.
Wow.
We are avid gamers. So the types of things that we play, like Skyrim and the Old Faithfuls, all feature mead very heavily. So this has been part of our personal interest, and we wanted to build a business around that. So that's where we've come from.
Yeah, I'm sort of in a similar place myself.
Not a bad place to be.
We probably better let Allison get to bed before we keep her up for the rest of the night. It's almost all of it anyway.
We've devolved into talking about history and games anyway.
Here we go off into the weeds, man. We could do that anytime, but let's do it when Allison's not in the middle of the night.
At like 4 a.m. in the morning. Well, I'm up and bottling and packing boxes for one of our good customers, Shield Maiden in Glastonbury, tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Well, this morning at 7 a.m. So about what? How many hours from now?
Couple of hours.
3 hours from now. Yeah. Who needs sleep?
Yeah. Well,
you can do one night without, right?
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh God, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a blast having you on the show, totally. And you're welcome back anytime.
I mean, we've been in contact for. I would love that. We've been passing messages backwards and forwards now for a couple of years on social media.
Right?
It's really nice to actually put a voice to that. So you've made my night.
I was tickled to death that you were willing to stay up half the night to come on the show.
Not a problem at all.
I would have asked a lot sooner if I hadn't felt bad about that.
No, not at all. I'm used to being up. I'm a night owl anyway. So I'm going to look up the whole, what was it, Syllabub? And
Syllabub.
What was
Syllabub, yes.
Kenelm Digby's.
Yeah, sir. Just drop me a quick ping, and when I hop on tomorrow morning, I will send you back a link to Digby and the book, A Sip Through Time, and actually the book that I got my Syllabub recipes from as well, which is the Hampton Court Palace cookbook from right there in Britain. So yeah, that's where I got it, was Hampton Court. So
I'm not even going that far away from home to go pick it up.
Not really, no. I just say I picked it up when I toured Hampton Court and lugged it home with me. So, it was
awesome. Well, I'm going to make it my mission to get you ladies over here to visit us. So,
yeah.
AJ, Vicky, you've got to come over.
Oh, I want
my best.
I want to go back to the UK. It's been too long, and I loved it there. So, I'd like to come when it's not February, though. That would be good.
Yeah, come in June, July, or August. It's a lot nicer then.
I would like that.
It'd probably be nicer than June, July, or August here.
Oh, God, yeah. Get me out of the 7th level of hell here. It's so bloody hot. Oh, my God.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking over 100 degrees Fahrenheit most days. It's ridiculous.
Whoa.
And 70% humidity.
We've been having a heat wave over here at 30. And it's been hideous.
The fun thing about Ottawa is we get 30-degree summer, but we also get minus 30-degree winters, so it's just yucky.
You get the extremes at both ends of the scale.
Yeah, we just end up needing way too many clothes.
Yeah.
Separate rooms just for your winter wardrobe.
Yeah.
Bless you. Right, Melissa, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast. Love Mead, love you guys. Let's do more for Mead in the future together as a collaboration.
Let's definitely do that.
All right, ladies. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Try to get a little sleep.
Okay, bye.
Good night. That was fun.
Oh my God, she's so cool.
She is so cool. Yeah. So I'll just have to somehow pry you out of Canada, and we'll have to go to Great Britain. Yeah. Okay, coming up, upcoming events. Right now, we've got July 18th, Boss Meadery is having an open jam. These are all also on the show page for this episode, so you can click the links through there to get to it. July 22nd, Queensland, Australia is having their first meetup, which is super cool. Shame it's too early anyway, but I'm also not going to be going to Queensland. Australia is really big. I used to realize how bloody big it is until you start really looking, August 4th and 5th is the Bee Nectar Palooza, International Beer, Cider, and Mead Festival. I was at Bee Nectar last week, and I am here to tell you there is going to be a who's who collection of beer, cider, and mead being poured there, so including
awesome.
Some international stuff. So if you are anywhere near Detroit and can get down to Ferndale, you really want to check this thing out. August 5th, Enlightenment Wines at their Honey's Bar is holding a Mead Day celebration with, I think it's 5 New York meaderies. So, and I'm sure there's a lot more Mead Day stuff that's going to come up that we'll be able to put on the shows for the next couple of weeks to help you guys find the place that you want to go. David Webb, smartass. Did you know Australia's a continent? Yes. I stayed awake in geography class.
With you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so upcoming for the show, you guys are going to be pissed at us because we were off for a month while I was gallivanting around Michigan, and then we're here for 3 weeks. Well, 4 weeks.
I'm gone next week.
Yeah, AJ's gone next week, and then we're here for like the next 3 weeks, and then I'm off and gallivanting in Australia for 2 weeks. So, sorry. I'll try to broadcast from Australia. But upcoming we've got.
Then I think we're straight on through till November after that.
Yeah,
though,
we
right?
are. Yeah, we're pretty much straight on through. There's one Tuesday. I think it's one Tuesday we're missing because I'll be at Disney. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, well, sorry. I got a deal. I'm going to take it, It's going to be no kids, no dogs, and the Wine and Food Festival at Disney. Hello.
Dang.
Yeah, right? Okay, so next week we've got Justin Levon from Ethereal Brewing in Lexington, Kentucky, and I think that is the only meadery in Kentucky at this point in time. There was one that sadly closed a few years back, but I'm pretty sure that that's the only meadery that's going to be opening in Kentucky right now. I could be wrong, and I'll be happy to be corrected if I am. The week after that, we'll have Kylie Gwynn from Mountain Rose Herbs. I'm really excited about that one because
okay.
Yeah, amateur herbalist, so we'll probably go way off into the weeds. No pun intended there. And then the week after that will be Sam Kleichman from Big Lost Meadery in Wyoming. So that's a brand new one too. So he'll probably have a lot of good stories from. And I'm hearing that the honey up there is like pretty something special. So that should be interesting. And then, of course, August 13th to the 28th, I'll be, actually August 11th to the 28th, I'll be either on my way to or in Australia. And I'll try to do some broadcasts from there, and I'll let you guys know more as we get closer. So that's all I got.
I'm going to be in a lake next week, so I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, enjoy the lake.
Oh, I will. I cannot wait to dunk my tush in a lake.
Oh, I know. I was in the lake like every single day when I was home on vacation and the lake was like bath water. It was ridiculously warm.
Yeah, we sort of snuck off for an overnight to visit my mom at my parents' cottage and dunked tush in lake there too, and it was like bath water. It was amazing.
That's so awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. So we're gonna let you go because AJ and I are probably gonna chat around after we get off there, but. We will see you guys next week, same bat time, same bat channel for Justin Levon and Ethereal Brewing, and send us in any questions that you might have that you want to ask. And we'll talk to you soon. Later, Gators. See you next week.
Take care, everybody.